This is your chance to live mortgage or rent-free for an entire year. We'll give you a cash lump sum that will cover 12 of your monthly mortgage or rent payments, up to an incredible £20,000. Plus, we'll add £5,000 on top of that for you to treat yourself. You have to hurry though, as lines will close on the 29th of August. For a chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB15 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 29th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Dan was one of the victims of the attack, and he was just, within touching distance from the leading suicide bomber. And when that bomb went off, it killed 6 people.
It's still really surreal. It's still a kind of strange thought to realise that I was right in the middle of what happened that day. And even though it's 20 years, it still feels like yesterday.
Yeah.
The pain and the emotional torment that goes with that is just as fresh now as when it just happened.
Mm. And when you think back to that morning, because you've written a book about that day and your experience since, you actually were considering not going into work that day.
Yeah, my whole story of 7/7 is what I kind of term as sliding door moments. There's so many opportunities that were presented to me to do something different, or to stick to my normal routine and not step outside of that. And yeah, there's countless times where if I would have made a different decision, then I wouldn't have been on that train at that time. If I'd have got up on time, if I hadn't missed my stop, there's so many things that I can think back on and think, if only I've done this, if only I've done that. But it serves no purpose now because what's happened has happened.
You were horrendously injured, but people died on that bus that day.
Yeah, I mean, from the area of the train that I was on when the bomb went off, I'm the only one that survived. He killed everybody around me. And that's incredibly tough to live with, to know that you survived something that everybody around you didn't. And I was pretty much laying in and amongst dead bodies and body parts for about an hour and 40 minutes before I was taken out the tunnel.
And what do you remember about the murderer?
I think the most terrifying thing about it is just how calm he was. There was no fear, there was no hesitation, and the most scariest thing of all was he just looked like everybody else.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Very, very good afternoon to you. It's great to be back in the saddle. It's 3 p.m. Welcome to the Martin Daubney Show here on GB News. We're broadcasting for you live from the heart of Westminster and all across the UK. On today's show, public anger over asylum hotels is mounting, and with more demonstrations planned across the country. Later this week, on today's show, I'll be joining the studio by the co-organiser of yesterday's Canary Wharf protest, where women were confronted by masked yobs. Later in the show, I'll also be joined by a mother who's taken to the streets of Bognor Regis, saying women just want to feel safe. And Keir Starmer has pledged an extra £100 million to help smash the gangs. But as this is merely what taxpayers spend on asylum hotels in 20 days, less than 3 weeks, and small boat arrivals at a record high, is this simply too little, too late? And a group of angry French farmers have caused a stink after they sprayed pig slurry over a field illegally occupied by travellers. Now, could this dirty protest catch on here in Blighty? I'll be joined by the farming legend Gareth Wynne-Jones to ask him, is his idea a stonker or is it a stinker? And a danger to life warning is in place as Storm Flores batters Britain with winds of up to 107 miles an hour. We'll be crossing lives to our intrepid reporters clinging onto trees all across the country.
Well, I don't know if clinging onto trees would do very good, because even they're at risk of toppling over. Storm Flores hits landfall this morning, and already we are seeing high winds up to 90 miles an hour battering the west coast of Scotland. We'll have all the updates from north of the border.
Winds here in the northwest are up to 60 miles an hour as Flores continues to batter the northwest coast of England.
Well, the show, it's a pleasure to be back here in Westminster. Can I first say a huge thank you to all of the GB News viewers I met across the country on my holidays, from the fisherman who shook my hand on a Cornish cliff top, saying that GB News has kept him and his missus sane for the past 2 years, to the wonderful people in the Gunners Club in Sunderland on Friday. Forces veteran Alex, the owner there, made us feel so at home. People in the streets stopping us and saying thank you for doing what you do. And also then on to Nottingham. My dad Bob's 87th birthday last week in Nottingham. People simply saying thank you for doing what you do on GB News. And then back to London. Yesterday, London, you normally keep quiet about GB News. You never know what people are going to say. People are starting to come around now saying thanks for the channel. I'll tell you what, thanks you. Thanks to all of you for being so kind and so gracious. We are the People's Channel. Today, we're going to meet two special people. I'm joined in the studio by my next guest, Maxie. He's a co-organiser of the Canary Wharf protest, where mothers and daughters and women sat down in the street in a peaceful protest against fears of their safety, and also by a mother from Bognor Regis, also confused about the government stance. They promised to keep us safe. They're feeling that's not happening as the asylum hotel protests mount. Loads to get stuck into in today's show. Get into its usual ways. gbnews.com/your say is the way to do so. But first, it's time for your headlines, and here's Sam Francis.
Martin, thank you, and very good afternoon to you. Just after 3 o'clock, the government is pledging an extra £100 million to smash people smuggling gangs. That cash will fund 300 new National Crime Agency officers, bolster the UK's returns deal with France and upgrade intelligence technology. More than 25,000 migrants have already crossed the English Channel so far this year in small boats. Well, the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, says Labour is laying the foundations for stronger law enforcement. But the Shadow Treasury's James Wilde told us he thinks it's just all a distraction.
Well, this just feels like it's a gimmick to distract from the figures last week, showing 25,000 people have already arrived illegally, a record number. And over the last year, it's 48,000. And the reason for that and the numbers going up is because Labour scrapped the deterrent that we had in place. We hadn't operationalised it, I accept, but the scheme to remove people if they arrive illegally is key to breaking this business model of the gangs. And I fear that this is just an announcement that was trying to distract from that.
Reform UK leader Nigel Farage has named former prison governor Vanessa Frake as his new justice advisor as he ramps up his party's campaign on crime. She says Britain's prison system is on its knees and accused successive governments of failing miserably to tackle reoffending and support for inmates after release. She's backing tougher sentences for lifers and wants urgent reforms focused on rehabilitation. It's the second high-profile appointment today after Conservative Police and Crime Commissioner Rupert Matthews defected to Reform. Mr Farage says both moves mark a major moment in his justice agenda. More than 100 people gathered outside a migrant hotel in Canary Wharf in London over the weekend, staging what they called a pink protest against housing asylum seekers in hotels. The tensions escalated when a group of masked men arrived there, setting off smoke bombs and trying to breach hotel fencing. One man was arrested for assault. It's the latest in a string of demonstrations targeting hotels that are used to accommodate migrants. Separately, 2 more men have also been charged over last month's violent protest outside the Bell Hotel in Epping, bringing the total number of arrests to 11. Pro-Palestinian groups are turning their focus on the Labour Party, accusing them of being too soft on Israel. The Palestinian Youth Movement has released an 8-page strategy guide urging their activists to, quote, besiege Labour MPs, councillors and offices across the country. They claim Labour is complicit in Israel's actions in Gaza and says Sir Keir Starmer's recent pledge to recognise a Palestinian state is meagre and politically convenient. The Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, is heading to fresh talks this week with the British Medical Association, hoping to prevent another wave of strikes. It follows a 5-day walkout last week by resident doctors, with NHS England claiming fewer than a third of doctors took part. That would be a drop of 7.5% compared to the strikes last year. But the BMA disputes those figures, arguing shift patterns and leave make the data unreliable. The dispute has already caused major disruption and both sides are under pressure to find a resolution. Millions of drivers could be owed compensation after being missold car finance deals with payouts potentially totalling up to £18 billion. The Financial Conduct Authority says some leaders failed to properly disclose commission payments to car dealers between 2007 and 2021. It's now preparing to consult on a formal redress scheme by October. If approved, payouts would begin in 2026. And Storm Flores is battering parts of the UK with unseasonably strong winds hitting Scotland the hardest. There is an amber weather warning in force across much of the country, while yellow alerts cover Northern Ireland, Wales and Northern England. Police Scotland have said multiple camper vans have been seen to blow over, and they're urging drivers, especially in exposed areas, to stay off the roads. Several rail services have also been cancelled, including all East Coast trains north of Newcastle, and Avanti is advising against travel north of Preston. Flights to Scotland Islands are also grounded, and some major bridges are closed to high-sided vehicles as winds continue to surge. Those are the latest headlines. I'll be back with your 60-second update in around half an hour's time.
My Claim Group sponsors the GBNews Finance Report.
Well, here's a quick look at the markets for you this afternoon. The pound will buy you $1.330 and €1.148. The price of gold is £2,538.02 per ounce. And the FTSE 100 is at 9,111 points.
My Claim Group sponsors the GBNews Finance Report.
Thank you, Sam. Now, we've got some sad breaking news for you now to begin today's show, and that is the DJ and the radio presenter, the legend that is James Whale, has sadly died aged 74 following, of course, a long and very public illness. Now, James had been living with cancer for several years, and Talk confirmed the news today, describing the broadcaster as a titan of the industry, whose influence spanned more than 6 decades. Worth pointing out, his last ever interview was with Nigel Farage. There's a wonderful piece I read in the Express at the weekend where James said, "I feel ready to go." It was very, very emotional. He's in a hospice, surrounded by loved ones. James Whale sadly passed away. Rest in peace, you absolute legend. You'll be sadly, sadly missed. Now, moving on to the rest of today's show. The government is committing an extra £100 million to help, smash those gangs. Now, the additional funding will go towards the so-called one-in, one-out return scheme with France, which, to my knowledge, has seen none go out and, well, many come in. But protests show no sign of slowing down as demonstrators continue to gather outside hotels housing asylum seekers, and this included outside the Britannia International Hotel in Canary Wharf over the weekend, where women and children dressed in pink and united in a peaceful sit-down protest. They protested peacefully before masked rioters stormed the demonstration and clashed with police, and indeed many more protests are set to take part later this week across the country. Well, joining us now is our Homeland Security Editor, Mark White. Mark, pleasure to be back in London. Pleasure to have you on the show, my old friend. On a serious point, let's start with this money. £100 million sounds like a lot of wonga, but let's be frank, it's a drop in the ocean, is what the government spends in 5 days on asylum hotels. We give £500 million to the French every year. That's made no difference. Why will this?
Well, and many millions more from that 100 million sum will be going to the French to help them put into place this one in, one out, except it's not one in, one out, is it? It's a partial returns deal, which, when it starts at least, will only result in about 5% of those coming across the English Channel return to France. So 95% of those coming across the Channel will not be returned to France. So is that going to be any kind of a deterrent? I can't see for the life of me that it would be. And then, so how does the government judge its success? Because it says that it will determine whether this pilot has been a success and then we'll roll it out. But if you're only talking about a very small number, 50 a week, we're told, of migrants being returned, it's difficult to see how it's going to make any difference at all, Mart.
And Mark White, the protests continue apace meanwhile. And let's face it, the demographics of people turning up, certainly in places like the Britannia Hotel in Canary Wharf yesterday, well, they don't quite fit the script, do they? Being far-right thugs, women, children, local mothers.
Well, we've been seeing this for a while, haven't we, that these protests have had their genesis in the local communities and often responding to real concerns that have been sparked by specific incidents in their communities. Epping, of course, related to an alleged sexual assault that's going through the courts as we speak. Similar protests down in Portsmouth linked to an alleged sexual assault, and real concerns there that the authorities of the police down there were trying not to have that information filter out into the public sphere. And then again, of course, if you look at the Thistle City Hotel, which was the day before the images that we're looking at there at the Caledonian Hotel in Canary Wharf, that was in response to significant criminality linked to that particular hotel, multiple incidents of criminality, some of them going through the courts, again, mainly mothers and fathers very concerned about what is playing out within their local communities. And then, of course, the very disturbing news over the weekend about 2 Afghan asylum seekers who've been charged in connection with an alleged rape and assault on a 12-year-old girl. And then, of course, just yesterday, more news coming through about another alleged sexual assault, or at least an attempted abduction of a 10-year-old girl in Wilmslow in the Greater Manchester area. So all of these incidents that are then sparking off protests, and the vast majority of those attending these protests, at least in the early stages, are people from the local communities. We know, of course, as always is the way with these protests, Martin, that sometimes they get hijacked by more unruly elements from both sides. And particularly, of course, the self-styled anti-racists who are organised, who all turn up with their pre-prepared placards. And the whole raison d'etre of that particular organisation is to shout people's legitimate protests down, accusing them of being racists and neo-Nazis.
Indeed, you're right. Nazi scum off our streets, they were shouting at mothers concerned about sexual assault. An extraordinary state of affairs. Mark White, superb as ever. Look forward to you in the next hour. Now, let's get back to the studio now. I'm delighted to joined by the co-organiser of that local residents group opposing the Britannia Hotel in Canary Wharf, and that is Maxi Gorinsky. Maxi, welcome to the show. Pleasure to have your company. What motivated you to get involved in this protest? You work in IT, you're a successful young professional. You don't fit the mould of being a far-right thug.
No, I like to think not. I mean, the fact of it was that it became very, very clear that the Britannia was going to be used for these purposes. Myself and a number of our fellow residents were very, very aware of the very troubling statistics that are associated to these kinds of locations with respect to primarily the safety of women and children, but far from just them. And I think being an observer of the precipitous state of decline in the country, generally speaking, I don't think any of us had any illusions that anyone was going to be coming and saving us from this particular issue. And that if we were going to make our concerns felt, we were going to have to do it ourselves. My own perspective, I've been observing all these things happening, and it's very, very clear that if people like me, people like us, don't step up and start to shoulder some of the burden and try and make things happen in the most peaceable, lawful, civilised way possible, then frankly, who knows where we're going to get to.
Maxi, as well as yourself, and we saw those wonderful women on screens there at that protest yesterday. Give us a flavour of the sort of people that are involved in this protest, because this is not, far-right racist.
No, not at all. And the remarkable thing about the people that you saw out yesterday, the people that you've seen all through this period, this now 3-week-ish long period, is that it transcends basically all bounds and all sort of denominations. It's working class right through to upper middle class. It's male and female. Obviously, the women spotlighted yesterday, rightly so. People of 15 generations English stock who've lived in the Isle of Dogs generations, alongside people from China, Nepal, India, Germany, all across Europe, South America. And it is a complete and total fly in the face of the stereotype of these kinds of things. And I'm personally convinced that the vast majority of the people who have been protesting this up and down the country are very, very, very good people. And there's obviously a minority of people who are determined to exploit the situation for the wrong reasons, on both sides for that matter, far left and far right. And we put this together very, very specifically with a code of ethics and code of conduct during all of our activities that will allow the kinds of people who probably haven't felt, quite rightly, safe to come out and make their concerns felt in this way, to make this a place for all of them. And I'm extremely proud that it's been successful along those lines and that people have been really noticing that dimension of what we've been doing. Yesterday, Maxie, we did see a few masked people come into the area. We don't know their political leanings. We've seen people from the left, Antifa, Stand to Racism, attending, oftentimes being inflammatory, shouting, as has happened outside of Britannia, Nazi scum off our streets, which must come as a huge surprise to concerned mothers. But also there have been elements from the other extreme too, and I guess your message is, all of them, please stay away. Absolutely. I can say absolutely categorically and unequivocally that those people who came later on had absolutely nothing to do with the Pink protest or anyone involved in it. We did not solicit their assistance. We are completely and totally committed in there's written evidence of this as much as anything else, to do this in the right way, to do it lawfully, to exercise our right lawfully and peacefully. And I think there was a really actually profound image that started to come out of that particular encounter between the masked fellas and the police, where they were stood the police were stood very, very cleanly between those fellas in black and the people in pink. And I think that's kind of emblematic of the way that this issue is going now, where it's been hijacked for too long in some cases by people who are determined to use it for the wrong reasons, and is instead being pressed, the issue is being pressed by ordinary people who are fully entitled to their concerns by this, because it's backed up by all the data. Maxie Gorinsky, do you think protests like yours are just shattering the illusion of this binary stereotype we have of the righteous, of the good, of the morally pure refugees welcome crowd, and this disgusting far right kind of swamp of people? The reality is completely and utterly different. It is indeed, and that's, I think, one of the things that I'm particularly proud that we've managed to do, is to show that face of this particular issue, insofar it is more or less entirely universal among law-abiding people, whether they've lived here, as I say, their roots go back here generations, or they've arrived recently through legal routes. They all have identical concerns, and I'm extremely proud of the fact that you've seen people at the Britannia, and I'm certain you're going to see it up and down the country in other areas now, where you have these people of very, very different backgrounds standing shoulder to shoulder on a unified principle, with airtight logic animating their concerns, backed up by all of the data and information we have about this. And it is fundamentally, as you say, going to upset the position that the government feels like it can hold on this, where it thinks that the urban middle classes, certainly at least, will turn a blind eye to this kind of thing. They understand now, if they didn't before, that it affects them and will affect them exactly the same way it's affected the working classes. Maxie Gorinsky, thank you so much for coming to see us today and explaining that so eloquently. I really do appreciate it. Thank you. Now let's get on to my next guest now. I'm joined by the Labour Party councillor, Sebastian Sarlik. Sebastian, welcome to the show. You no doubt overheard my previous guest there saying this protest completely shatters the illusion that the Prime Minister himself said these people are far right. They're not far right, they're just right.
I would be really careful not to put any labels on anybody. We know that there are people who are protesting peacefully, and I will defend their right to do that. That is very important, that they are allowed to do that under the law. There are, as you've seen, also people who are coming to cause trouble, people in balaclavas, people with smoke bombs. We don't know who they are, but they should not be welcome there. So if we're going to make any distinction, it should be between those who are coming to protest peacefully and those who are coming to cause trouble. We don't want to see them anywhere, frankly.
I totally agree with that. And those from Stand Up to Racism and other affiliated groups shouting Nazi scum off our streets, they're affiliated with the Labour Party. They're affiliated with unions that back the Labour Party. They're not from the political right. Will you condemn the actions of the political left?
I will condemn the actions of anybody who uses words like scum and who causes violence. I don't know of anybody who's there who's affiliated with the Labour Party. I'll make that really clear. But anybody who comes and causes violence certainly shouldn't be doing what they're doing.
You think that the Prime Minister totally misread the room a year ago when he called people like this far right And he can say that that was only aimed at those who were causing genuine trouble, but that wasn't the perception amongst the public. And it's spectacularly backfired, and it's been very, very damaging for the Prime Minister.
Well, look, I think we do have a real issue with small boats, which the government is recognising. And you talked earlier about the extra money that's being put in. That's really important. I think that's a really clear sign of where this government's priorities lie. They are reading the room. They are seeing that immigration is important to a lot of people in this country. And what I'm particularly encouraged by is that this funding is going to tackle the roots of these gangs, whether that's in the Middle East, Africa or Asia, because let us not forget that these are networks. These are not people who are hanging around in Calais and helping people cross the channel. These are people who are ferrying asylum seekers from much further afield, and it's really important that they're tackled at the root if we're really going to get a hold of this problem and we're really going to be able to shatter those gangs.
Sebastian, could I ask you a more profound question about, have the political left made a strategic and fundamental error by basically declaring anybody who disagrees with them as racist or as right-wing? It seems to be prevalent throughout the years, throughout the Brexit years, throughout all of these protest years. Do you think you've got a problem on the political left with just denouncing anybody else who disagrees with you as bad people? Clearly, people like Maxi aren't bad people. Clearly, people sitting outside those hotels, women concerned about their children getting raped, aren't bad people. Is it time to stop calling everybody racist and far right who disagrees with you?
I don't think we should call everybody racist and far right who disagrees with us. And I would want to have a serious word with anybody who takes that as a policy. But that doesn't also mean that there are people who are racist and there are people who are far right who are getting involved and who are trying to profit from this. And that's where my concern really is. Because to take the peaceful protest of a local person and to come in and to seek to stir up violence and to seek to whip up hate, that is a really bad faith thing to do. Many of those people are from affiliated far right groups. And I don't want
many
to
of them are from far left groups. In fact, the majority, I put it to you, are from organised, well-funded far left groups. The far left has got a problem with racism too.
I don't know those details, but look, I will condemn anybody who comes in and whips up hatred. The reports that I have seen from journalists in the industry is talking about certain far-right groups and certain groups that are affiliated with neo-Nazis, and I find that really concerning. But look, if you tell me that there are far-left groups in and we have hard evidence of that, I'll be the first to condemn them as well.
Well, the hard evidence is before your eyes. If you listen to them shouting Nazi scum off our streets to mothers and daughters and children, it's disgusting behaviour. I just want you to condemn it.
Look, if anybody is shouting Nazi scum at a local person who has not come in to cause trouble, I will very happily condemn that. But the issue is there are other people who are coming in also who are causing trouble and are from affiliated groups. They should not be there, just as anybody seeking to cause violence should not be at any protest in this country.
Thank you very much. I really do appreciate you coming on the show and appreciate your time. Thank you very much, Labour Party councillor Sebastian Salix. So that's how we do it on GB News. We have a balanced debate. Thank you very, very much. Now, breaking news now, and it's bad news. 22,500 properties are without power currently in Scotland. The storm Flores continues to batter Britain. The lights are going out in Scotland. We'll be crossing live to our reporters across the country next. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News, Britain's News Channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around, a nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
You've read the headlines, you've heard what those in power have to say. How about now we actually get to the truth?
They would pay attention.
We go beyond the political theatre and tell you what's really going on behind the scenes. For a massive council tax hike, one of the biggest in the UK. Others follow their lines, but we go off script.
You sound like a broken record, just like week after week.
Cutting through the narratives and giving you unique perspectives. That's Ben Leo tonight, Saturdays and Sundays from 9 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there short and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Time is 3:28. You're with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, danger to life warnings have been issued, with trains cancelled and commuters urged to stay at home as Storm Flores arrives. Winds have been reported now of up to 107 miles an hour. And joining me now is GB News reporter Steve Bennett from Lytham St Anne's and GB News reporter Tony Maguire from Dumbarton. Tony, I'm going to start with you because the breaking news line is there's a huge amount of homes across Scotland where the power's down.
Yeah, Martin, good afternoon. That's correct. So essentially up in the Highlands and the northeast of the country, 22,000 homes now without power. This has obviously been a storm that has been building over the course of the day. Quite often we see it lose some momentum over when it hits the mainland and crosses over to the east, but yet not this time. Winds strong enough to close several roads up in Aberdeenshire, as well as kind of uprooting trees and landing them along the way. But of course those homes operated its Scottish and Southern Electricity Network, SSEN. They're the ones who are trying to really get on top of that. They've said that because of the persistence of the wind, because they're not letting up, these are essentially gusts but also wind that is just constantly battering a lot of properties, has constantly been working away at those power lines, and obviously has resulted in thousands of people being left without power. Now, SSEN has said already that they are working really hard to get as many people back on tonight, but obviously because of the persistence of the winds, because the warning is in place really till about 11 o'clock tonight, that some people might have to leave the power off, or the power will be off, sorry, until the morning. But of course disruption, very much the name of the game. All the way up the west coast we've got trains cancelled, and even down in the central belt where I am, very windy, very blustering.
Well, Tony Maguire, make sure you put a bit of rope around your waist and tie yourself to a tree. We'll come back to you later on throughout the show. Steve Bennett, let's join you now. Not quite as blusty down there where you are, but still looks like you're holding on to your hat. Oops, it's gone.
Martin, hello to you, mate. That's right, it is very windy here. Let me just step out of shot so you can see 50-mile-an-hour winds we're currently experiencing. You can see that sand there, that's making its way down the beach. Now, Lytham St Anne's here in the northwest is known for being a windy area, but just not this time of year, not in the height of summer, and not to this extent. Earlier on, I spoke to some of the locals, actually, who had braved it here on the promenade, and here's what they told me about what they're experiencing today.
We do get weather like this on the front, but it's quite wild today.
Usually when we do get winds up here, they're very strong. So if it's meant to be 20 or 30, it's more like 40 now. But where you are on this top here is the windiest place in the whole of the Fylde, basically, because you've got that, and that's virtually where the wind's coming from, you know what I mean? But it's so strong. I'm doing well here to stand up. So at the end of the day, the only good thing about it, it's not blowing my hair about.
Yeah, it's quite usual around here, I would say. We only live just around the corner. It's always windy. Obviously, it's a bit more windy than usual, but it's yeah, it's nice. It's a beautiful part of the world. Yeah, everything's tied down in the garden.
And don't be deceived by how sunny it is currently. Earlier on, myself and John, the cameraman, we were getting battered by the rain. It was absolutely horrendous this morning. The rain has finally eased, but the wind has not done so, and it still seems to be getting faster and faster. Struggling to breathe, actually, struggling to stand up. I'll just step out of the way again so you can see it's really having an impact here on the beach. The sand is really flying down there, and we're experiencing 50-mile-an-hour winds at the moment. And this, the amber warning to life, danger to life, is in place till about midnight tonight. We can see why, because as Tony was mentioning, in Scotland, the wind really is ramping up as it blows across the country.
Well, Steve Bennett, if you want my advice, the advice I always say to my wife, the safest place is the pub. Go and take shelter in the pub, Steve Bennett. And Tony Maguire, isn't it ironic that they've turned the wind turbines off during record winds in case it overloads them? Gentlemen, keep safe, and we'll look forward to seeing you later on in the show. Thank you both of you for reporting the latest there on Storm Flores. Now, still plenty more to come between now and 4 o'clock, including French farmers devise an ingenious, if smelly way to deal with squatters on their farm. That's right, they sprayed slurry at the travellers. That's next, but first is your latest news headlines with Sam Francis.
Very good afternoon to you. The top stories this half hour. The UK government is ramping up its battle against people smuggling gangs, announcing an additional £100 million. That funding will strengthen the UK's France return deal and bring in 300 new National Crime Agency officers. Protests outside a migrant hotel in Canary Wharf in London saw over 100 demonstrators gather at the weekend. One person has been arrested as tensions continue over the controversial asylum policies. More defections to Reform UK, with Nigel Farage announcing the appointment of Rupert Matthews as their first Police and Crime Commissioner and Vanessa Frake as their new Justice Advisor. As we were just hearing, more than 22,000 properties are without power in the Highlands in Scotland and the northeast of the country as Storm Flores hits the country with high winds. Millions of drivers could be in line for compensation after being missold car finance. The regulator warns payouts could reach £18 billion. And TV and radio legend James Whale has died at the age of 74. Known for his iconic phone-ins, he leaves behind a legacy of charity work and a reputation as a rule breaker and a good friend. Those are the headlines for now. More news at 4.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Storm Flores continues to batter northern parts of the UK, with many parts of Scotland already having seen their highest August wind gust on record. Storm Flores continues to bring widespread 50 to 60 mile-per-hour wind gusts across northern parts of the UK, with the risk of 80 to 90 in a narrow corridor across the far north of Scotland as it moves away during the rest of Monday, bringing widespread disruption. These unseasonably strong winds causing havoc for many parts of northern UK. It does eventually calm down somewhat overnight, but it stays gusty, particularly in the far north of Scotland, and we'll see frequent showers following the main areas of rain. As we wake up on Tuesday, plenty of showers around for the north and the northwest of the UK. Still a very strong wind blowing through Shetland in particular, 50, 60, perhaps 70 mile-per-hour wind gusts, spells of rain here. Showers continuing for Orkney, but for the rest of Scotland, not quite as windy as Monday. Nevertheless, it is going to be a blustery day with further heavy showers coming into western parts in particular. Likewise for Northern Ireland, a few showers for North Wales and northwest England, but for much of England and Wales, it's mostly bright with some sunny spells, and it's lighter winds there for the far south and southeast. As the sun comes through, plenty of warmth still in that sunshine, so temperatures reaching 23 or 24 Celsius. Where we've got the blustery winds further north, it's not going to feel quite as warm. High teens, low 20s in places. But it is going to be a blustery day wherever you are, and it's only into the evening that those winds calm down somewhat as higher pressure starts to build back in from the southwest. We'll still see some rain heading into the northwest of Scotland, and it stays very mixed across northern parts of the UK during the rest of the week. Another windy spell, not as windy, but still the potential for some gusty winds by the end of the week.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBnews.com. The M90 Queen's Ferry crossing is shut to double-deck vehicles due to high winds. On the A470 in Merthyr Tydfil, roadworks cause closures and diversions. In Devon, a collision on the A30 eastbound between junctions A382 and A377 results in a lane closure and 20-minute delays. The A500 in Staffordshire between the M6 junction 16 and A34 is closed due to a vehicle fire. And on the trains, Storm Flores affects Avanti West Coast services. Avoid travelling north of Preston. Also, do not venture north of Newcastle on LNER. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Welcome back. Your time is 3:38 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, French farmers have devised a clever way of dealing with hordes of squatters on their land, travellers. That involves truckloads of manure, because tractors circled around a farm in eastern France, as you can see on your screens now, circling around and spraying a brown, sludgy-looking liquid. Yeah, you can guess what that is. It's called pig manure, and it's causing travellers who are occupying the area to flee. Mission accomplished, some might say. Well, joining me now is the farmer Gareth Wynne-Jones. Gareth, welcome to the show. I understand you're in Sardinia. It looks beautiful where you are. I hope you got a beer in your claw there, Captain. Gareth, you have as well. Yay, beautiful. Gareth Wynne-Jones living the high life, and you certainly deserve a break. But back to this story. French farmers, they've massively got the hump with travellers on their land. They're spraying slurry around the field. Is that a stinker or a stonker of an idea?
Well, do you know what? That's our working factory floor. And, you know, if they'd approached the farmer and asked for permission, you know, and had the opportunity to go there and do it, you know, properly, I don't think the farmer would have been worried. But you've got to think that's where your food comes from. Comes from that land. Wherever you are in the world, you have to respect the farmer and private land. So, you know, the authorities hadn't gone there to help with the situation. So they've taken the law into their own hands. They've done everything legally, literally, because they have the right to spray that slurry. If it was pig slurry, oh my gosh, that is going to stink, especially in the summer. So, yeah, there's more than one way to get rid of people if you don't want them on your land. But we've got to look at this seriously. You know, authorities have to be more open about talking about these problems instead of the farmers having to go out there. You know, they should have moved them on before this came to this situation. So I think it's really important that we have this dialogue and that we have a situation where we don't see this again. Nobody wants to go out and spray slurry on other people's property or other people's vehicles. But, you know, things happen sometimes and it has to be done.
And Gareth Wynne-Jones, it's worth just playing that footage again on the screen. You can see these tractors circling round, spraying slurry. It looks like some of the travellers' cars are attempting to stop them. Well, good luck with that. Car versus tractor normally ends in one victor. It looks like something out of the Italian Job, or should it be called the Italian Jobby? You can see there, look, these travellers are trying to, you know, forlornly stop that tractor spraying its slurry around. Don't forget, that's their own land. They're not spraying it on the travellers' caravans. They're not spraying it on any of their merchandise. They're simply spraying it on their own land, as you say, to create a right royal stink to try and drive them off. Gareth Wynne-Jones, I put it to you, though, you're exactly right. Farmers oftentimes are never backed up by local authorities. They seem powerless to get squatters off their land. But if you did that kind of thing in Britain, Gareth Wynne-Jones, no doubt they'd call it a hate crime.
Well, most probably we'd get arrested, wouldn't we, if it happened in the UK. But, you know, you've got to protect your business, you've got to protect your land, and we need government and we need local authorities to be backing us as well. You know, you don't want to be put into that situation. Nobody wants. And, you know, I think if the travellers would approach the farmer and done some kind of deal to say, look, there's 100 caravans wanted to come on for 3 days, you know, we'll give you X, Y, and Z. You know, I wouldn't expect somebody to pull onto, you know, my land without having that permission, and I wouldn't do it with anybody else. And think of it as a factory floor. Imagine if 200 or 300 people just waltzed into somebody's factory that was producing something. You know, it could be a massive problem for the business and a health and safety problem as well. So, you know, you can't blame them. Unless we're getting backing from the authorities and governments, people will take, you know, drastic measures to protect their land and their businesses to make sure there's a future in farming for the next generation, because otherwise there'll be no food on people's plates.
Gareth Wyn-Jones, as I have you here, you're obviously taking a well-earned break. Have a sip. It's thirsty work doing all this talking. Have a little topperoonie. There we go. Can I ask you about Bev Turner, of course, from GB News, asked a question of Donald Trump in front of Sir Keir Starmer up in Scotland, putting farming back on the map. Now, you're having a break now, but I'm assuming when you're back in Blighty, you boys aren't stopping anywhere anytime soon, are you?
She's a maverick. Absolutely love her to bits. She and you guys as well. You're doing a great job, and congratulations on coming first with GB News. There's a lot of people that like to hear it or see it. You know, I've been portrayed as very right-wing because I've been doing a few interviews with you guys. But we're just people. We're just people finding solutions to the answers and being honest. And, yeah, I can't congratulate her enough. I sent her a message, you know. I know Bev on a personal basis, she's fantastic. And that went viral, not in the UK, but globally. And that's what we need. You know, we need people like her and you to be asking difficult questions. And whatever you think about Trump, you know, he said it. He's got away with the death taxes in America. You know, he's protecting his farmers, making sure that they're going to be producing food to feed people. And that's what we need here. We need Mr. Starmer and the rest of the groups there in Labour to start showing support to the industry. And we wouldn't need to go out and protest because, look, the last thing we want to do is to do that. I'm having a week here with my beautiful wife, spending some time relaxing, and she's going to absolutely kill me because you're not going to believe this, man. I got the hour wrong, so I've been here waiting an hour because I forgot about the time difference. That's what hillbillies are like. My God.
Well, at least you got a cold drink, and cheers to you, and thank you very much. And thank you to your wife for sparing time to be on the show today. Gareth Wyn-Jones, absolute legend. Have a great break and see you back soon. Thank you. Now, moving on, here's your chance to live mortgage or rent-free for a year and get a bonus £5,000 in your bank in the latest Great British Giveaway.
This is your chance to live mortgage or rent-free for an entire year in the latest Great British Giveaway. That's right, we'll give you a cash lump sum that will cover 12 of your monthly mortgage or rent payments, up to an incredible £20,000. Plus, we'll add £5,000 on top of that for you to treat yourself. And if you don't have a mortgage or rent to pay, lucky you, we'll give you £15,000 in cash instead. You have to hurry though, as lines will close on the 29th of August. For a chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB15 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 29th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
It's a bit of a mixed picture across much of Europe over the next couple of days, with thunderstorms across parts of the Balkans, but across parts of Spain and Portugal, we're going to see that heat building over the next couple of days. Maximum temperatures could be reaching up to around 40 degrees and minimum temperatures not dropping much below 20 degrees overnight too. Those thunderstorms will continue across parts of Greece and the Balkans over the next couple of days, but it should be turning a little bit drier towards the end of the week. But that heat does continue to rise by the end of the week.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Despite what Donald Trump's saying about ceasefires and whatever, reports have been coming out overnight about continuing missile attacks.
Well, British expat David Mason was caught up in those missile attacks on Friday when he and his son barely escaped with their lives after an Iranian missile exploded next to them in a bombing raid in northern Israel.
Let's speak to David, because David joins us now from his hospital bed, actually, to tell us about this terrifying ordeal. David, how are you?
I'm alive. I'm alive. That's one thing. Yeah. I'm alive.
How bad was it? A close call, was it?
It was very close. The missile hit about 25 feet away from us. God. It blew me completely, that's basically off my feet. And it was just dark and just blood everywhere, basically. I landed. As I woke up, there was a body. I was on top of a body which I thought was my son. And as I cleared all the debris away, I looked up and realized my son was standing there with a hole basically in his neck, shot. Oh. And, I basically went into father mode, as my other children said, dad mode. Took my shirt off, wrapped it around his neck to make sure that he wasn't bleeding more. And then he turned to me and said, "But Dad, you're splurting blood from everywhere. My arms, my back, my head." And I said, "Don't worry about me."
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 10 to 4. You're with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, more than 1.2 million primary school pupils go to schools with no male teachers. And this comes as experts warn of a rise in misogyny owing to a lack of positive role models for boys. Well, let's speak now to one of those role models, the maths teacher, Bobby Siegel. Bobby, welcome to the show.
Good afternoon.
What's that blazer, mate? Is that West Ham?
It's gone for a claret. You know, I want to mix things up, keep my audience on their feet.
Bobby, I was about to call you a role model and you let yourself down by publicly coming out as I'm joking. Let's get back to this story. Yeah. I'm a huge fan of having more blokes in the classroom, and of course you're one of them, because men give something to school kids, particularly boys, I think, something that's sadly missing. Positive male role models. It's a crying shame, Bobby, that so few men follow your lead.
Yeah, it's really important to get men in the classroom, because sadly in our society, if I mention the word masculinity to people, the first word that most people think is the word toxic. And that's such a shame, because actually masculinity in a respectful way, something which society needs. But that only happens, I think, if young people are given the right sort of role models. And you mentioned actually 1.2 million children in primary school have no male teachers. 1.2 million children. So these are children that, again, will have great female teachers, but they need male teachers too. So again, at secondary school, only 1 in 3 teachers are male. Then at primary, it's 1 at 7. And then at early years, Martin, it's 1 in 33 teachers are male. So children are growing up in a world where they're not having male role models. And I think it impacts them in terms of thinking, what's a male meant to do? And then they seek ideas online. And sometimes online, you don't always get the best role models.
Yeah, and beyond that, you know, I mean, when I was a kid, I came from a pretty rough and tumble background. You know, my parents separated. You know, I went a little bit off the rails, and it was male teachers that kind of whipped me into shape. Stop clowning around, Daubney, you know, knuckle down. They was talking directly to me like that, and they're exactly right. And they kind of gave me that chance. How do we get more men to sign up for the profession, Bob?
And this is a really challenging question, Mark, because I get asked this every single year, because the stats, sadly, every single year we get fewer and fewer men applying to the profession. I've heard some ideas, again, whether this is a bit controversial, but offering males potentially a bit of a carrot incentive to get into the profession, maybe a golden hello, a handshake, or some sort of like cancelling some of their student loans. But obviously that will cause a bit of a furore, because should 2 people doing the same job get paid the same thing? Probably, but the profession simply doesn't have enough males in it. So the government needs to be really creative in thinking how they can draw men into the profession.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. I really, really do. But if they start offering more money, incentives to men, no doubt they'll call it sexist.
I know, that's the problem. I think maybe potentially an incentive at the start to start redressing the balance. And then when men get into the classroom, their peers will start talking. Young men in their 20s will say, actually, I've been in the class, it's not too bad. And then other their male peers will join. So maybe we need something to tip the scales.
Yeah, superb stuff. We're going to leave it there. Bobby Seagull, best of luck to you as ever, my friend, apart from the end of August when you boys come to the City Ground and we're going to hammer you. Bobby Seagull, an absolute pleasure as ever to have you on the show. I love our football banter. You're a legend. Thank you very much, Bobby Seagull. Now, still to come, I'll be joined by Reform UK's new police and crime Commissioner. He said today, Mr. Rupert Matthews, he's promising to tear the dark heart of wokeness out of the justice system. Now, what does he mean by that? There's many examples, of course, of police taking the knee, of police dancing the Macarena, of police showing political leanings. Is it time for that to go? And what about another thing mentioned today by Reform UK, and that is trans women, biological men, shouldn't belong in women's jails at all. They should actually go to men's prisons. Are these common sense ideas, or are they transphobic and the ideas of dinosaurs? That's next with me, Martin Daubney, on GB News. I'll be joined by the Reform UK's latest defector, and that's Rupert Matthews. We're on British News Channel, but now it's time for your weather, and hang on to your hats.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello again and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Storm Flores is now pushing across Scotland, bringing unusually strong winds for August, even in a windy part of the country, and disruption is likely from these exceptionally high winds for August. Here's Storm Flores. It rapidly deepened overnight. It is now swinging into the west and northwest of Scotland. A band of rain will cross the country associated with this, pushing south and east along with some gusty winds. But the main cause for concern are the winds, which will peak mid to late morning across western Scotland, and then mid to late afternoon into the evening across the north and northeast of Scotland. We're talking about widely northern UK, 50 to 60, perhaps 70 mile/hour wind gusts, and in a narrow swathe across the west of Scotland into the north of the mainland, Orkney as well. There's the risk of 80 to 90 mile/hour wind gusts, and it's this band of heavy rain and showers where we'll see the strongest of the winds during the rest of Monday, and those wind strengths could cause considerable impacts, especially given that it's August obviously a lot of people travelling and taking part in outdoor activities. Showers following the main band of rain, and it's going to stay windy overnight, but the worst of the winds will ease during the evening. It's also going to be a very showery night across Scotland, Northern Ireland, Northern England and North Wales. Clearer skies further south, less windy across southern parts of the UK, certainly during the next 24 hours. A mild night to come for all of us because of the wind, but the main impacts from those winds tending to ease into the morning as Flores pushes into Norway. And we're going to see further showers. A blustery day to come on Tuesday, but nowhere near as windy as Monday. There'll be some bright spells in between the showers, and the winds certainly dying down during the day, with temperatures recovering well. 24 Celsius in the south, high teens further north.
A positive outlook through the night will power through to a bright day ahead. Boxed Home Battery Storage, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon, this is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. The A96 is closed at Nairn due to a hazard causing disruption. In Merthyr Tydfil, the A47 southbound is closed for maintenance with diversions. On the A430 southbound in Hampshire, there's a collision causing lane closures and delays. The A53 southbound exit slip at Junction 9 in Cheshire is blocked due to debris, with normal conditions expected late evening. The M5 southbound in South Gloucestershire has congestion between junctions 14 and 16, adding 30 minutes to journeys. And on the trains, Storm Flores is affecting Avanti West Coast and cross-country services, causing disruptions. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Let us take on some of your financial stresses and pay your mortgage or rent for the next 12 months. We want to give you a cash lump sum equivalent to 12 of your monthly mortgage or rent payments, up to an unbelievable £20,000. We'll also boost that by a further £5,000, so you really could have some fun in the coming year. For a chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB15 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 29th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates, 5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5. You got me. You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show. It's not a bad brand. Yeah. Uncensored. Very, very, very easy tonight on the unpredictable. What does she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
A very, very good afternoon to you. It's 4 p.m. and welcome to the Martin Daubney Show here on GB News. We're broadcasting for you live from the heart of Westminster and all across the UK. On today's show, public anger over asylum hotels is continuing to mount, and with more demonstrations planned across the country later this week. On today's show, I was joined by the co-organiser of yesterday's Canary Wharf protest, and later where women were confronted by masked yobs. And later in today's show, I'll also be joined by a mum who's taken to the streets of Bognor Regis, who's saying women just want to feel safe. Keir Starmer has pledged an extra £100 million to help, smash those gangs. But as this is merely what taxpayers spend on asylum hotels in 20 days and small boat arrivals at a record high, is this simply too little, too late? And tributes continue to pour in as James Whale, the veteran radio DJ, TV personality and absolute legend, has died from cancer, aged 74. His close friend Lizzie Cundy joins us shortly on the show. And a danger to life warning is in place as Storm Flores continues to batter Britain with winds now up to 107 miles an hour, and with the lights going off now for thousands of homes across Scotland. We'll be crossing live to our brave reporters hanging on to trees across the country. And a whopping...
Well, we're out here on the banks of the Clyde and we can see that Storm Flores has already made landfall. We've got commuters without trains, we've got festival goers without a festival, and now in the north of Scotland we've got homes without power. Storm Flores is not messing about.
50 mile an hour winds are currently battering the northwest with an amber warning, threat to life in place until midnight tonight.
You boys stay safe out there. Meanwhile, a whopping 22-inch rat, thought to be the UK's biggest ever rodent, has been found in a kitchen in Redcar. Now, local politicians are fighting like rats in a sack over whose job it is to exterminate the local vermin, with the Tories blaming Labour for the so-called Redcar Ratzilla. I'll try to get to the bottom of this creepy tale. Now, before we say who writes this rubbish, I do. Sometimes you have to have a bit of fun on this show. But on a serious point, an incredible guest in the show earlier on, a gentleman called Maxi Gazinski, who's the co-coordinator of the protest yesterday at Canary Wharf. We saw an astonishing, peaceful sit-down by local women dressed in pink, completely obliterating the reputation of these protesters. Quotes from the Prime Minister as far right, or those counter-protesters calling them Nazi scum, calling them fascists, calling them racist. We seem to be at something of a tipping point with these protests now, with the British public stepping up and simply saying we will be silenced no longer on the issue of crime and law and order. I'm joined in the studio by the latest defector from the Conservative Party to Reform UK, Rupert Matthews, Police and Crime Commissioner for Leicestershire and Rutland. He said he's going to rip the dark heart of wokeness out of law and order. What does that mean? Sounds spicy. He's right here. He's going to tell me in a short period of time. Get in touch the usual way, gbnews.com/your say. It's the way to do so. But now it's your headlines, and he certainly is spicy. It's Sam Francis.
Martin, thank you. A very good afternoon to you. It is just after 4 o'clock. The government's pledging an extra £100 million to smash people smuggling gangs. That cash will fund 300 new National Crime Agency officers, bolster the UK's return deal with France and upgrade intelligence tech. More than 25,000 migrants have already made the crossing over the English Channel in small boats so far this year. The Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, says Labour is just laying the foundations for stronger law enforcement. But the Shadow Treasury's James Wilde told GB News he thinks it's all a distraction.
This just feels like it's a gimmick to distract from the figures last week showing 25,000 people have already arrived illegally, a record number, and over the last year it's 48,000. And the reason for that and the numbers going up is because Labour scrapped the deterrent that we had in place. We hadn't operationalised it, I accept, but the scheme to remove people if they arrive illegally is key to breaking this business model of the gangs. And I fear that this is just an announcement that was trying to distract from that.
Storm Flores is battering parts of the UK with unseasonably strong winds hitting Scotland the hardest today. An amber weather warning is in force across much of the country, while yellow alerts also cover Northern Ireland, Wales and Northern England. Police Scotland have said multiple camper vans have been blown over, and they're urging drivers, especially in exposed areas, to stay off the roads. Several rail services have also been cancelled, and more than 22,000 homes are without power. Reform UK leader Nigel Farage has named former prisoner Governor Vanessa Frake as his new justice advisor as he ramps up his party's campaign on crime. She says Britain's prison system is on its knees and accused successive governments of failing miserably to tackle reoffending and support for inmates after their release. She's backing tougher sentences for lifers and wants urgent reforms focused on rehabilitation. It's the second high-profile appointment today, with Conservative Police and Crime Commissioner Rupert Matthews also defecting to reform. Mr Farage says both moves mark a major moment in his justice agenda. More than 100 people gathered outside a migrant hotel in Canary Wharf over the weekend, staging what they called a pink protest against housing asylum seekers in hotels. But tensions escalated when a group of masked men arrived there, setting off smoke bombs and trying to breach hotel fencing. One man was arrested for assault. It's the latest in a string of demonstrations targeting hotels used for migrant accommodation. Separately, 2 more men were charged over last month's violent protest outside the Bell Hotel in Epping. It brings the total number of arrests to now 11 people. Meanwhile, pro-Palestinian groups are turning their focus on Labour, accusing the party of being too soft on Israel. The Palestinian Youth Movement has released an 8-page strategy guide urging activists to besiege Labour MPs, councillors and offices across the country. They claim Labour is complicit in Israel's actions in Gaza and says the Prime Minister's recent pledge to recognise a Palestinian state is a, quote, meagre and politically convenient move. The Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, is heading to fresh talks this week with the BMA, hoping to prevent another wave of strikes by resident doctors. It follows a 5-day walkout last week, with NHS England claiming fewer than a third of doctors took part. But the BMA disputes those figures, arguing shift patterns made the data unreliable. The dispute has already caused major disruption, and both sides are under pressure to find a resolution. Millions of drivers could be owed compensation after being missold car finance deals, with payouts potentially reportedly totalling up to £18 billion. The Financial Conduct Authority says some leaders failed to properly disclose commission payments to car dealers between 2007 and 2021. It's now preparing to consult on a formal redress scheme by October this year. If approved, payouts would begin in 2026, and the average payment could be around £950. And a TV and radio legend, James Whale, has sadly died today at the age of 74. Known, of course, for his iconic phone-ins, he became a household name in the 80s. And a cancer survivor, Whale founded Kidney Cancer UK and also earned an MBE for his charity work. Friends and colleagues today paying tribute to him, remembering him as a rule breaker and a very good friend. Those are the latest headlines for now. I'll just take you over to look at the markets.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
Here's how the markets are shaping up just after 4 o'clock. The pound will buy you $1.330 and €1.148. The price of gold is £2,538 and 2 pence per ounce. And the FTSE 100 is at 9,111 points.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
Thank you, Sam. Now, Nigel Farage has today accused previous governments of having failed and failed miserably on crime and punishment. Now, the leader of Reform UK was addressing a news conference early today about his Lawless Britain campaign, and he also touched on housing asylum seekers in hotels. He says there should be tougher controls to protect the country.
Turning a blind eye, not telling the British public the truth. Well, when it comes to protecting children, we're not hiding behind a flawed piece of legislation. We genuinely intend to protect, in particular, women and children. And I made this point 2 weeks ago, but I'll make it again today. None of these young, unidentified males that are coming into this country should be free to roam the streets. They should be detained ahead of them being deported. And that is absolutely what we stand for as a party, and we mean it. And we'll do that to protect the British people. We have simply had enough.
Well, we have simply had enough there, Nigel Farage says. And joining me now in the studio is GB News' political correspondent Catherine Force, and also Reform's first Police and Crime Commissioner, defected dramatically this morning, Rupert Matthews. Welcome to you both. Catherine, I should start with you. You were at that news conference earlier on, part of the Lawless Britain roll out over the summer recess. And Nigel Farage there simply saying, we have had enough. Anybody who comes to Britain illegally will be detained and then deported. What else leapt out at you?
Yes, well, just the complete difference in tone between what Farage is saying and the government announcing this 100 million, you know, all these things that they are doing to try to get a grip of this. But Nigel Farage just saying, we've had enough. Basically, if you come here illegally, we'll detain you and then we will deport you. He says that that is what normal countries do. A really hard line. He said to me that they will outline how exactly they would do this later in the summer, but he said within 2 weeks, nobody would be making that crossing. He was saying, fundamentally, at the moment, they're rewarded. You come over, you're almost certainly going to get to stay. You're put up in very nice hotel accommodation or a house. You're given pocket money. You can work illegally, and so on and so forth. So a very, very hard line. And from the new prisons, SAR saying that the prison system is absolutely on its knees. Now, she is talking about being much tougher with some prisoners, like Axel Rudakabana, you know, with the horrific Southport murders last year, that she feels jails are being much too soft on. But on the other hand, talking about the real need for rehabilitation and saying that, you know, so many prisoners now, they're not serving, well, 40% of their sentence. So you don't have the time or the ability or the resources to turn those people around. And so the whole system is in complete crisis. But, of course, fixing that will take a lot of money.
And Vanessa Frake, that new prison czar, she'll be appearing on GBN tonight, with GB News Tonight with me at 7 p.m. I'll ask her some more questions then. But back to, you're right, it sounds great, and no doubt will please a lot of people to say we'll send people back in 2 weeks. But that's a huge turnaround. It'll take a huge logistical issue. Legislation like the ECHR is in place, so there's a lot to do to make this happen.
Oh, huge amounts. And, of course, it is very easy to say things when you're not in power, because Labour said they would smash the gangs. Look, we're a year on, 25,000 people cross the channel. It's up 50%. It is easy to say, but it does sound like Reform are preparing to be exceedingly radical, because they have come to the conclusion that nothing else is going to do. Their argument is if you start to detain and deport people, people will very quickly stop coming, much in the way that the Tory government always said. The original Rwanda plan was if you come here illegally, you are not staying, you're on a one-way ticket to Rwanda. If they'd ever got that up and running in that way, surely the crossings would have stopped, because who would come if you know you're going to be sent to Rwanda? Who's going to come if you know you are going to be deported? But saying that and that actually happening, of course, are very different things, although Donald Trump does seem to be managing in the States.
OK, let's turn now to my other studio guest, Rupert Matthews, joining us from that fresh defection this morning from the Conservative Party to Reform UK, the first police and crime commissioner for Nigel Farage's outfit. You've promised to cut out the dark heart of wokeness from our criminal justice system. Sounds dramatic, sounds bloody. What does it mean?
Well, as with so much of the public sector over the past 20-odd years, and this is under Conservatives as well as Labour, certain ideas, you know, just get a grip. And there's things such as net zero, high immigration, and so on. And people aren't used to be challenged on this sort of thing. And so it just goes by on the nod. And that is where we've got to make a start. And this is one reason why I joined you. So radicalism that you've just been talking about is absolutely what is needed in this country to try and tear things back out of the grip of the left-wing establishment, liberal establishment, which has got such a firm grip on this country. We've got to turn it around.
So in terms of law and order specifically, your field of expertise, what does that mean? I mean, removing the dark heart of wokeness, what do you mean? Things like no more pride marches, no more dancing the Macarena, no more taking the knee, but serious stuff like the politicisation of policing. How would a non-woke police service work?
OK, well, you're talking about the pride marches and so on. And I think this is an absolute case in point that the police's job is to be neutral, the police's job is to be impartial, and they absolutely should not be taking part in anything, be it something to do with pride marches or indeed a reform demonstration. The police, they're there to police it. Big crowds attract pickpockets. The police are there for crowd control. The police are there to deter pickpockets. They should not be there to take part. And yet, over the past 20-odd years, it's just become sort of accepted that if it's a nice, trendy left-wing cause, then it's OK and it's fine. And all the dinner parties at Notting Hill and so on go, oh, yes, that's all right, isn't it, Tarquin? You know, it's complete nonsense. We've got to get rid of that. And I'll give you one example. Just recently, His Majesty's Inspectorate of Constabulary announced that they're going to inspect police forces on the ethnic makeup of the number of police officers. Well, Leicester is a very diverse area, but it's quite clumpy. And so one part of Leicester is overwhelmingly Muslim, another part is overwhelmingly Hindu, somewhere else is overwhelmingly white working class. So I wrote to the head of the inspector and said, well, what do you mean by this? Because I said, does that mean that this area I can only put Hindu police officers into it, that area I can only put white police officers into? And I asked, where's the research to back this up? Where is the stuff that tells us this is going to keep community safe? And the answer was there isn't any. He just made it up himself, and you know, you can take a guess as to why he's doing it as well. So you get
rid of all quotas. You just hire the best people. What about physicality? Hiring armed forces veterans, people who might not have a degree. They might not be good at university.
Well, I haven't got a degree, so that's fine.
Common sense approach.
You look at this. What works? Let's look at the evidence of what actually works. If it works, we'll do it. If it doesn't, we won't do it. But that seems to have gone by the board. So much of this now is, you know, what's going to sound nice when I'm talking to my friends? What sort of headline will I get in The Guardian if I do this? That seems to be a consideration, not is this going to keep our communities safe? And the more money you spend on your ethnic quotas, the more money you spend on net zero, which I'm also under pressure to try and sign up to, the less money you've got left to actually put bobbies out in the streets keeping people safe. And I think that's my real problem.
Can I just ask you, Rupert Matthews, why on earth would a police force have a net zero target? What does that mean?
You tell me. As far as I'm concerned, our job is to keep communities safe. And that is absolutely the prime job that we've got to do. There are all sorts of other things we can do. So, you know, for instance, we recently put up bird nesting boxes in the fields that are at the back of Police HQ. Great, they didn't cost a lot of money. It's going to be great for wildlife. That's a good thing. But a lot of these projects, like Net Zero, when I was presented with it and said, you know, are you going to sign this? My first question was, what's it going to cost? They hadn't costed it. They just wanted me to sign up to something and it wasn't costed, so I refused.
You've got a question, Catherine Forster, about Vanessa Frake, about trans issues.
Yes, so Rupert, at the press conference, very struck by a lot of comments that were made. But Vanessa Frake, the new prisons czar for reform, on the issue of trans women in female prison wings or prisons. The government's position and the former Conservative government's position was that those would be for biological women either. Vanessa Frake has said that it should be on a case-by-case basis according to a risk assessment, which I think a lot of people will say reform are being woke and more, much more so, which I think a lot of people wouldn't expect. What do you make of that?
Well, if I thought reform were woke, I wouldn't have joined them. What we actually understand what we're doing is we're setting up this body to start looking at the policies and start to work things through. So Reform don't actually have a policy on this at the moment. And she was speaking for herself, just as I speak for myself when it comes to being Police and Crime Commissioner in Leicester, Leicestershire and Rutland. I wouldn't put trans women into a women's prison, but you've got to work your way through the process of drawing up policies. You've got to look at all the options. You've got to weigh up, are they good, are they bad, come to a conclusion at the end.
But we did have a Supreme Court judgment that basically said that sex was biological sex, and
correct.
I think a lot of women will then therefore feel that they have absolutely the right to single-sex bases, wherever that is, even if that's in jail. So, yeah, interesting.
All right, thank you very much, Rupert Matthews and Catherine Forster. Let's bring my next guest in now. I'm joined by the political commentator, Dominic Moffett. Dominic, welcome to the show. Always a pleasure to have your company. What do you make of this latest defection from the Conservative Party to Reform UK? Because the problem with Law and Order is it has a dark heart of wokeness that needs to be cut out.
Well, Martin, thank you very much. And it's a very interesting problem, isn't it? Because the Conservatives, who obviously stand regularly particularly on a law and order manifesto, have lost somebody to reform, and that is a deeply problematic position for them. What PLMR and electoral calculus's polling shows is that for a lot of Conservative voters and Reform voters, immigration is one of their most important issues when it comes to voting. And clearly the Conservative Party doesn't have the trust of the public yet on that.
But it's going to be very, very difficult. I mean, my point is, it's very, very, I think every party finds out it's very easy being in opposition. You can say whatever you like. And a lot of people might like to hear the mood music of we're going to deport everybody within 2 weeks. But logistically, it's going to be incredibly difficult and incredibly expensive. That's not to say the ambition shouldn't be there, but is it possible?
It's a very, very difficult thing to do, and the Conservatives obviously spent, I think it was £700 million on a Rwanda scheme that got 4 people to voluntarily leave the United Kingdom. That clearly is not a record of success. The current Labour government is under a lot of pressure at the moment to deal with migration, with asylum claims. I mean, they're very proud of the fact that it's like nearly 4,500 foreign criminals that have been deported, that 35,000 asylum claimants have been returned to countries that they're from. But clearly, we've seen the pictures from Canary Wharf. Lots of people in this country are not satisfied with what's happened so far. Talk about more money for an asylum border command, the Borders Bill with terrorism-style powers to combat illegal migration. These are things that, as you say, sound very good in opposition. They can be very popular, but so far they're not cutting through with the public. The public are not at the moment reassured that the Labour government is dealing with it.
Dominic, can I ask you this, Dominic, about what many people believe is a complete disconnect between those in power and the general public. You're seeing on your screens now pictures of women, of mothers, of daughters who are saying we're concerned about our safety, and yet the political class, the commentariat, they seem to think these people are far right. Is that the heart of the problem? This disconnect between law and order, disconnect between political reality and what's actually happening in the real world?
Well, I think it's quite interesting because we were just listening to your colleague, I think Jane Forster, who's talking about, the right to work illegally. Well, of course, that's not a right that people who've come to the UK have got illegally, because it is illegal for them to work. And that's one of the reasons why the government is cracking down on people who are doing exploitative kind of 0-hour jobs when they're here on asylum claims. And we saw last week a kind of a launch around tracking of delivery riders, not to name one firm, but I'm sure there are plenty that are guilty, delivery riders going to asylum hotels with phones that are used to work on that platform. And that's one of the things that I think the government is trying to get through, this idea that it's not a soft touch, it's not an easy thing to do. The last couple of years, the Tony Blair Institute launched a kind of a piece of research about why people come to the UK. Apparently, there's incredibly low levels of kind of awareness in migrants around the hotel situation in the UK. In fact, they come to the UK because they think it's a democracy where their rights will be respected.
Dominic, I want to play a clip now. I want your opinion on this. It's sent to a friend of mine, an armed services veteran, who was at the Thistle Hotel at the Barbican at the weekend, and he was called Nazi scum. Let's watch this. Dominic, I want to put it to you that calling an armed services veteran Nazi scum or a fascist and telling him to get off our streets is about the most offensive thing you can possibly ever say, on account of the fact they fought actual Nazis, the real Nazis, the ones that were alongside Adolf Hitler, not Nazis that write hurty words on social media. These people on our screens, I put it to you, are part of the problem. When will the political left call out their own extremists?
I mean, the video doesn't come through for me, so I can't really hear it. But I think you're probably sort of inflaming the situation when a chant is treated as directed at a particular person. What's also going on there is that the protests outside hotels do have people at them who are there to make those confrontations worse. There are bad actors, of course, on both sides of the kind of protest thing. But let's be clear, the people who were breaking down fences in Canary Wharf today, they were not peaceful protesters worried about people's safety. They were the ones causing the violence and putting people in danger themselves.
No, look, my point is quite simple. I have the co-organiser of one of the protests in the studio today, saying they want people of both extremes to stay away. You know, everyone who's not from the area, stay away. My point to you is the far left, Antifa, stand up to racism, call them whatever you want. They not only don't stay away, they're highly organised. They take money from government loans to turn up and inflame the situation. Condemn them, please.
Well, I'm here to talk about how it works politically and what these groups are. And I think, you know, you're right that for the organised left, there is a problem when they are seen to be allied with people who are trying to disrupt politics. But one of the reasons that the Prime Minister was so keen, I think, to see Jeremy Corbyn leave the Labour Party is it's put clear blue water between Jeremy Corbyn's Labour Party and the government we have today.
So it's the far left that's out there, nothing to do with the Labour Party, despite the fact the Prime Minister himself called these protesters far right just a year ago. Dominic Moffett, we have to leave it there. Thanks for joining us on the show. Now, still to come, 22,500 properties are without power currently in Scotland. The storm Flores continues to batter Blighty. We're crossing live to our intrepid reporters across the country. Next, you with me, Martin Daubney on GB News.
Britain was once the envy of the world, but look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m.
only on GB News.
You've read the headlines, you've heard what those in power have to say. How about now we actually get to the truth?
They would pay attention.
We go beyond the political theatre and tell you what's really going on behind the scenes. For a massive council tax hike, one of the biggest in the UK. Others follow their lines, but we go off script.
You sound like a broken record, you say that week after week.
Cutting through the narratives and giving you unique perspectives. That's Ben Leo tonight, Saturdays and Sundays from 9 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Okoye, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Welcome back. Time's 4:30 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, danger to life warnings have been issued, but trains cancelled and commuters urged to stay at home as storm Flores arrives, continuing to batten Blighty with winds now of up to 107 miles an hour. Now there's news that anyone waiting for exam results in Scotland may have to wait longer because of the storm. The Royal Mail has confirmed there will be delays in delivering of Scottish qualifications and authority results for Scottish Islanders living in the Outer Hebrides, Orkney and Shetland. Terrible news there for kids and parents alike. And joining me now is GB News reporter Steve Bennett from St Anne's and GB News reporter Tony Maguire from Dumbarton. Tony, once again, I'm going to start with you because the worst of the effects of Storm Flores seems to be hammering there in Scotland.
Yeah, good afternoon, Martin. I mean, I think that's a pretty fair assessment. Scotland up in Stornoway in Isle of Lewis got it really full force this morning around 10 a.m. and over the course of the day we've just seen it get stronger and stronger as it moved across the Highland. In fact, the highest speed at one of the tips of the mountains in the Cairngorms, 122 mile an hour winds. Quite sensational stuff, and you know, it's not surprising then that with that comes a lot of disruption. Tens of thousands of homes in the Highlands and in the northeast now without power. SSEN, the network provider, said that they will work to get them as many as they can tonight, but because of the persistence of these winds, many of them may not have power until the morning. You also mentioned there about the SQA results. Tomorrow is supposed to be a special day for a lot of young people opening their results. Well, some of them might have to wait until after midday when they can make a call to the Scottish Qualifications Authority. In fact, up around the UK in total, there's been 68 cancelled flights today as a result of the storm. Now, the worst hit airport up in Aberdeen with 12 flights, and the second to that is actually in Belfast, who obviously took one for the team before mainland Britain earlier today. And in fact, all across the country we've seen trains cancelled, we've seen multiple train lines lose power, as well as Storm Flores has hit the west coast of Scotland, and even over in the east of the Central Belt, well, there's dozens of fringe shows that have been cancelled. The Edinburgh Fringe now well underway, and of course the world famous Royal Edinburgh Military Tattoo, for the first time in its 75-year history, not having a show tonight. Quite incredible reaction to Storm Flores.
Yeah, Tony Maguire, thanks for joining us. I'll tell you what, look on the bright side, a ray of sunshine, as it were. If you're anything like me, when I was a kid, I'd be delighted about getting my exam results 2 days later. Less chance of a clip round the ear from my mum. Thank you very much, Tony Maguire. Let's get straight now to Steve Bennett from Lytham, St Anne's. Steve, the wind lashing across the sound there. Tell us more.
Hi Martin, hi everyone. That's right, we've got 50 mile an hour winds as it stands. Let me just get out of the way of the shot here. You can see the sand there is being blown right across the bay. When we arrived this morning, we were getting pelted by the rain, pelted by the wind. The rain has now stopped, I'm thankful to say, but the wind is just getting faster and faster. Now, earlier on, I spoke to some of the locals who have braved the promenade today, and here's what they told me about these conditions.
I mean, we do get weather like this on the front, but it's quite wild today.
The usual thing, when we do get winds up here, they're very strong. So if it's meant to be 20 or 30, it's more like 40 now. But where you are on this top here is the windiest place in the whole of the Fylde, basically, because you've got that, and that's virtually where the wind's coming from, you know what I mean? But it's so strong. I'm doing well here to stand up. So, end of the day, the only good thing about it, it's not blowing my hair about.
Yeah, it's quite usual around here, I would say. We only live just around the corner. It's always windy. Obviously, it's a bit more windy than usual, but it's yeah, it's nice. It's a beautiful part of the world. Yeah, everything's tied down in the garden.
So an amber warning, danger to life, remains in place to about midnight tonight, and the advice remains stay at home, stay safe, don't come out unless you absolutely need to.
Thank you very much there, Steve Bennett and Tony Maguire. I tell you what, chaps, whenever I'm in wind like that, it seems to blow me through a pub door. Perhaps you should do the same. Take care out there, and speak to you later on in the show. Loads more still to come between now and 5 o'clock, including I'll be paying tribute to the legendary DJ and the TV personality James Whale. His close friend Lizzie Cundy, and a great friend of the channel, joins me shortly. First, here's your latest news headlines with Sam Francis.
Very good afternoon. The top stories just after 4:30. The government in the UK is ramping up its battle against people smuggling gangs, announcing an additional £100 million in funding. It will strengthen the UK-France return deal and bring in 300 new National Crime Agency officers. Protests outside a migrant hotel in Canary Wharf in London saw over 100 demonstrators gather on Sunday. The citizen has been arrested as tensions continue over the controversial asylum policies. More defections to Reform UK, with Nigel Farage announcing the appointment of Rupert Matthews as their first police and crime commissioner and Vanessa Frake as their new justice advisor. More than 22,000 properties are without power in the Highlands and northeast of Scotland as Storm Flores hits the country with high winds. Millions of drivers could be in line for compensation after being missold car finance. The regulator warns payouts could reach £18 billion. TV and radio legend James Whale has died at the age of 74. Known for his iconic phone-ins, he leaves behind a legacy of charity work and reputation as a rule breaker and a good friend. Those are the latest headlines for now. I'll be back with your news at 5.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Storm Flores continues to batter northern parts of the UK, with many parts of Scotland already having seen their highest August wind gust on record. Storm Flores continues to bring widespread 50 to 60 mile-per-hour wind gusts across northern parts of the UK, with the risk of 80 to 90 in a narrow corridor across the far north of Scotland as it moves away during the rest of Monday, bringing widespread disruption. These unseasonably strong winds causing havoc for many parts of northern UK. It does eventually calm down somewhat overnight, but it stays gusty, particularly in the far north of Scotland. And we'll see frequent showers following the main areas of rain. As we wake up on Tuesday, plenty of showers around for the north and the northwest of the UK. Still a very strong wind blowing through Shetland in particular, 50, 60, perhaps 70 mile-per-hour wind gusts, spells of rain here. Showers continuing for Orkney, but for the rest of Scotland, not quite as windy as Monday. Nevertheless, it is going to be a blustery day with further heavy showers coming into western parts in particular. Likewise for Northern Ireland, a few showers for North Wales and northwest England, but for much of England and Wales, it's mostly bright with some sunny spells, and it's lighter winds there for the far south and southeast. As the sun comes through, plenty of warmth still in that sunshine, so temperatures reaching 23 or 24 Celsius. Where we've got the blustery winds further north, it's not going to feel quite as warm. High teens, low 20s in places. But it is going to be a blustery day wherever you are, and it's only into the evening that those winds calm down somewhat as higher pressure starts to build back in from the southwest. We'll still see some rain heading into the northwest of Scotland, and it stays very mixed across northern parts of the UK during the rest of the week. Another windy spell, not as windy, but still the potential for some gusty winds by the end of the week.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon, this is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. The A9 is closed in both directions at Burnham due to a hazard on the carriageway. Drivers should use alternate routes and expect longer than usual journey times. The A470 southbound at Merthyr Tydfil has roadworks with diversions in place. In Hampshire, a road traffic collision on the A34 southbound between the junctions with the A343 and the A303 has closed one lane. And on the trains, Storm Flores is affecting Avanti West Coast services today. Travellers should not journey north of Preston due to various disruptions. Cross-country services are also affected, so plan accordingly. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Welcome back. It's approaching 20 to 5 with me, Martin Daubney, on GB News. Now let's return now to that sad breaking news earlier this hour. And the legendary DJ and the radio presenter James Whale has sadly passed away, aged 74, following a long and very public illness. He fought bravely. He'd been living with cancer for several years, and I'm delighted to be joined by the broadcaster and the close friend of James Whale, Lizzie Cundy. Lizzie, welcome to the show. I know this has hit you pretty hard. You're very close to James, so tell us your initial thoughts. Where everybody knew this was coming, James very bravely and very publicly spoke about his illness, his end of life, but that won't have lessened the pain for you today.
Yeah, Yeah, Martin, it's a terribly sad day. We all knew this day was coming, but it just hit me when I got the call from his lovely wife this morning to say he'd passed away. But I was just with him on Friday. I went to see him at the hospice, and he was the same Whaley that I knew and love, you know, cracking jokes, and despite obviously very poorly and very frail and weak, he was making me laugh, you know, saying his usual naughty jokes and making the nurses laugh. And, you know, I just am so sad. He is a friend of over 30 years to me. I met him first when he was diagnosed with kidney cancer, and I helped him with that charity, which, you know, rose so much money and he did so much work for. So over 30 years ago, and I worked side by side with him for every Saturday evening for the last 4 years. And we had many great laughs, but, you know, he said what he thought, he shoot from the hip, and, you know, he took no prisoners, basically. You know, what you see is what you get, and I loved his honesty, his direct talk, but underneath he was a real softie, and he was, as I said, a great friend to me and got me through many ups and downs. But you know what, there'll only be one James Whale, that's for sure.
You know, Lizzie, I read his last column in the Express at the weekend, and there seemed to be an acceptance. So he said, I'm ready to go now. And he was in that hospice there in Kent, where he said he felt very at home, he felt very loved. Of course, you were there yourself on Friday. So when he faced death right in the eyes, just stoic and brave right till the end.
He really was so brave to the end. And as I was hoping to see him today, actually. So, you know, I knew the end was near, but I just never thought he would go. And when I left him on Friday, I said, James, look, what can I do? And he said, can you give me 5 more years? And I said, sadly, I can't do that. What else can I do? And he said, put some bloody clothes on. Made a joke. And he just said, look after my dear wife, who he calls Lady W, because James worked till the end, you know. He really, he was so brave. He wasn't going to let this cancer beat him. He was continue to work, which gave him a great focus. He did the wonderful podcast with his wife, you know, about living with cancer and trying to help others to deal with it, because it's very hard for the person that's looking after you, you know. And he was very close to me and my ex-husband Jason, who also had cancer, and he was a great support to us both.
And Lizzie, of course, in the heyday of his career, things like the James Whale radio show, I mean, I remember that vividly as a teenager. It was like late night, closing time TV, dangerous, anarchic, hilarious, close to the bone. In many ways, that's exactly what James Whale was himself.
Well, it was, and he said what he thought, and if he didn't like it, he didn't care. You know, on the show I was on with him, and he'd often throw people out the studio and just say, if you don't like it, get out. Or if you didn't like what they were saying, he would just cut them off. And it was great viewing. He was one of the first of its kind. And I remember Simon Cowell saying to me that he actually copied his style, James Whale's style of being the Mr. Nasty. And he said, you know, I got that off James Whale, and James was very proud of that. And let's not forget, James got an MBE. He won a Trick Award just last year for 50 years of broadcasting, and he loved every minute of it. He really did, Martin, and he was a great friend.
And he absolutely loved the notoriety.
Sorry, I'm keeping it together.
No. I'm trying to talk about happy stuff, because I know you're very close to breaking down in tears, Lizzie. I just remember now the joyous anarchy of that show. People used to phone in as a sport to try and swear on live television. He had a button to cut them off, and oftentimes he didn't do it. But it was people used to tune in for that craziness, that anarchy, and the spirit of Kenny Everett. And I think that's what set him apart. You know, that kind of devil-may-care attitude right till the end.
And Martin, he wanted to kind of bring that show back. He hated all the wokeness. He was so against it. And he said, look, we've got to do another show like I used to do, because it was great TV. It was TV gold. You got back from the pub, and I remember just couldn't wait to watch it. And you saw James just say what he thought, throw people off the set. And, you know, he didn't care. And that was what was so wonderful about James. He was unapologetic. He was true to himself, and he said what he thought. And you know what? I will greatly miss him, Martin. I can't tell you. I don't know how I'm going to cope without him. And he used to always ring me, he'd watch all my shows and tell me how good I was or how good I wasn't. And, you know, he was honest and truthful, and he was like a father to me. So I'm going to miss him very much.
Lizzie, Cundy, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your thoughts, your memories, your emotions. And please, stay brave. Thanks, darling. Lizzie Cundy, thanks for joining us today on the show. Ah, lovely. If in search of some holiday sun this year, then here is the forecast for some of the top European destinations.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
It's a bit of a mixed picture across much of Europe over the next couple of days, with thunderstorms across parts of the Balkans, but across parts of Spain and Portugal, we're going to see that heat building over the next couple of days. Maximum temperatures could be reaching up to around 40 degrees and minimum temperatures not dropping much below 20 degrees overnight too. Those thunderstorms will continue across parts of Greece and the Balkans over the next couple of days, but it should be turning a little bit drier towards the end of the week. But that heat does continue to rise by the end of the week.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
27 now. Heaven, Health and Beauty in Shropshire is celebrating the official unveiling of their royal warrant today.
Well, it's been recognised as the supplier of skincare products and treatments to Her Majesty the Queen after she first used the company's products 19 years ago. She's a loyal customer.
She is a loyal customer. Jack Carson has been getting the treatment.
I was just like, I wish my mum was here to see this.
There's a beaming smile on the face of Heaven, Health and Beauty founder Deborah Mitchell as she celebrates the unveiling of their royal warrant. Starting her business with £10 in her pocket in 1995, Deborah says she's worked from the ground up and started providing skincare treatments to Her Majesty the Queen 19 years ago. Today she says she's honoured to be a recipient of a royal warrant.
It is a feeling that you cannot explain, but I was very lucky before having the royal warrant when Camilla Parker Bowles was Camilla Parker Bowles, and I didn't tell anybody I did her treatments. It hit in the press, and then this product, which is the bee venom made from bees, makes the skin look younger using a Botox alternative.
The King and Queen have granted royal warrants to almost 400 companies that supply the royal household, with each one lasting up to 5 years. It also means those companies can display the royal arms on their products. Director and daughter of Deborah, Ella Mitchell, makes this business a family affair, and she's made sure the packaging is already getting a fresh look. Ella says she's proud the products are made in Britain.
The achievement itself, you feel proud to be British, and I think that's one of the core values of us.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome Welcome back, 10 to 5, and I'm Martin Daubney here on GB News. Now, 20 years on from the murder of a mother in her own home, detectives are still hunting Britain's most wanted fugitive. Kevin Parle is suspected of being involved in the death of Lucy Hargreaves, who was shot dead, aged just 22, in Walton, Liverpool in 2005. And I'm joined in the studio by the former Metropolitan Police Detective, Peter Blexley. Peter, this is a case you know a lot about. In fact, at one point you got very close to apprehending this missing man.
Yes, I remain convinced of that. In 2019, I publicly made it clear that I was going to hunt Kevin Parle, because not only is he wanted for Lucy Hargreaves' murder, he's wanted for the 2004 murder of a 16-year-old boy called Liam Kelly. So this man, wanted for 2 separate murders, should really be a household name, but I think he'd enjoyed a bit of a charmed life in so much as that he'd largely gone under the radar. So I announced my hunt in 2019. I dedicated 4 years of my life to trying to find him, travelled to Dubai, Spain numerous times, Liverpool countless times, Ireland, joining the dots, receiving a whole torrent of information at one point, really trying to find this guy. And at one point, I think we got very close. I went to an estate called Val del Este in Spain. Has a golf course, rather beautiful, properties that surround the estate, villas, bungalows, quite a huge area. And I'd spoken to a man who said, I was in a villa with Kevin Parle. There were guns there, Parle was there. I passed all this information on to Merseyside Police, gave them a comprehensive intelligence package. They did nothing with it. So 18 months later, myself and my podcast producer, because we were making a podcast at the time, went to Val del Este. It was deadly quiet. It was after COVID. Not many people around. Very, very little traffic. We leafleted hundreds of properties on that estate. We're very creative about getting into various parts of it. As we left this really, really quiet estate, 3 or 4 huge, powerful vehicles went zoom, zoom, zoom past us in convoy. I said to my mate, Parle could be in one of those. 10 days later, I got an anonymous phone call saying, Peter, you don't want to hear this, but you got close. You got very close, but somebody tipped him off.
So tipped off, Merseyside old Bill didn't seem to want to do much about it. There's another theory, of course, and that is he might be brown bread. A lot of people might want a guy like this out of the way.
Oh, yes, because say Kevin Parle got arrested and decided to become Queen's evidence, in other words, be a grass, a snitch, call it what you will, a super grass, certain people would be having very sleepless nights. And many people told me that he was dead. But on each and every occasion that someone said, he's dead, mate, in a Scouse accent, generally speaking, I would say, prove it. How? Where? When? And I can understand the reluctance of people to tell me the details, but it was always light on detail, and no 2 kind of versions of his death ever tallied up.
And Peter, for the family, of course, the life sentence is not knowing.
It certainly is, not only for Lucy, her 3 children, of course, and Liam, only 16 years old. This man truly, truly needs to be captured, put in front of a court of law, charged with the offences. If he's dead, then for the sake of all those people affected by Kevin Parle's alleged actions, somebody tell the truth. Where is he, or how did he precisely meet his maker?
And yet the code, such as it is, of the criminals is keeping silence. We don't know anything else from that time onwards. Peter Blexley, we have to leave it there. Pleasure to have you on the show. As ever, the hunt continues. Now, still to come, public anger over asylum hotels is mounting. I'll be joined next by a mother from Bognor Regis who says she isn't far-right, she isn't Nazi scum, she isn't racist, she's simply a woman who's concerned and wants to feel safe in her neighbourhood. She'll join me next on the show. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News, Britain's News Channel. But now it's time for your weather. Hold on to your hats.
Even though we'll see a cloudy start, it'll be a bright outlook for the rest of the day. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Storm Flores continues to batter northern parts of the UK, with many parts of Scotland already having seen their highest August wind gust on record. Storm Flores continues to bring widespread 50 to 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts across northern parts of the UK, with the risk of 80 to 90 in a narrow corridor across the far north of Scotland as it moves away during the rest of Monday, bringing widespread disruption. These unseasonably strong winds causing havoc for many parts of northern UK. It does eventually calm down somewhat overnight, but it stays gusty, particularly in the far north of Scotland, and we'll see frequent showers following the main areas of rain. As we wake up on Tuesday, plenty of showers around for the north and the northwest of the UK. Still a very strong wind blowing through Shetland, in particular 50, 60, perhaps 70-mile-per-hour wind gusts, spells of rain here. Showers continuing for Orkney, but for the rest of Scotland, not quite as windy as Monday. Nevertheless, it is going to be a blustery day with further heavy showers coming into western parts in particular. Likewise for Northern Ireland, a few showers for North Wales and northwest England, but for much of England and Wales, it's mostly bright with some sunny spells, and it's lighter winds there for the far south and southeast. As the sun comes through, plenty of warmth still in that sunshine, so temperatures reaching 23 or 24 Celsius. Where we've got the blustery winds further north, it's not going to feel quite as warm. High teens, low 20s in places. But it is going to be a blustery day wherever you are, and it's only into the evening that those winds calm down somewhat as higher pressure starts to build back in from the southwest. We'll still see some rain heading into the northwest of Scotland, and it stays very mixed across northern parts of the UK during the rest of the week. Another windy spell, not as windy, but still the potential for some gusty winds by the end of the week.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon, this is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. The A9 at Burnham is closed due to a hazard. Expect longer travel times and consider other routes. In Merthyr Tydfil, the A470 southbound is closed for roadworks with diversions. M6 northbound between junctions 14 and 15 in Staffordshire faces a 20-minute delay. Debris on the M53 southbound exit slip at junction 9 causes lane closures. Oxfordshire has a collision on the A34 northbound closing one lane. Hampshire reports a similar situation on the A34 southbound. And on the trains, Avanti West Coast advises against travel north of Preston due to significant disruption. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
This is your chance to live mortgage or rent-free for an entire year. We'll give you a cash lump sum that will cover 12 of your monthly mortgage or rent payments, up to an incredible £20,000. Plus, we'll add £5,000 on top of that for you to treat yourself. You have to hurry though, as lines will close on the 29th of August. For a chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB15 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 29th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Beth.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie is here.
I'm Michelle Chu, Britain's News Channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's News Channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's News Channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Very, very good afternoon to you. It's 5 p.m. and welcome to the Martin Daubney Show here on GB News, broadcasting for you live from the heart of Westminster and all across the UK. On today's show, public anger at asylum hotels is continuing to mount, with more demonstrations planned across the country later this week. On today's show, earlier I was joined by the co-organiser of yesterday's Canary Wharf protest, where women were confronted by masked yobs. And in a short while, I'll be joined by a mum who's taken to the streets of Bognor Regis saying women just want to feel safe. Now, Keir Starmer has pledged an extra £100 million to help smash those gangs. But as this is merely what taxpayers spend on asylum hotels in just 20 days, and with small boat arrivals at a record high, is this too little, too late? A danger to life warning is currently in place as Storm Flores continues to batter Blighty with winds in excess of 107 miles an hour. We'll be crossing live to our brave reporters clinging onto trees across the country. And a whopping 22-inch rat, thought to be the UK's biggest ever rodent, has been found in a kitchen in Redcar. And now local politicians are fighting like rats in a sack over whose job it is to exterminate the local vermin. Well, with the Tories blaming Labour for the so-called Redcar Ratzilla. I'll try to get to the bottom of this very creepy tale. Welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have your company. So a year ago, the Prime Minister Keir Starmer branded people at asylum hotel protests as far right. 1 year on, the frustration continues to mount and the protests continue to roll out. There are a bunch planned across the rest of this week. Earlier on the show, I was joined by an extremely eloquent young man who is the co-coordinator of the protests at Canary Wharf, telling me this is cross-community, cross-ethnicity, cross-political, not racist, not far-right, simply concerned citizens. In a short while, I'll be joined by a mum from Bognor Regis who says women are feeling unsafe on our streets. And it's completely unfair to call us far-right or racist for sharing those concerns. Let me know what you think. Has political class completely misjudged the mood of the nation? Once again on this, get in touch, gbnews.com/your say. But before all of that, here's your headlines, and here's Sam Francis.
Martin, thank you, and a very good evening to you. Just coming up to 3 minutes past 5. The government is pledging an extra £100 million to smash people smuggling gangs. That cash will fund 300 new National Crime Agency officers, bolster the UK's return deal with France and upgrade intelligence tech. It comes as more than 25,000 migrants have already crossed the Channel in small boats this year alone. Home Secretary Yvette Cooper says Labour's laying the foundations for stronger law enforcement. But the Shadow Treasury's James Wilde told us he thinks it's just all a distraction.
This just feels like it's a gimmick to distract from the figures last week showing 25,000 people have already arrived illegally, a record number, and over the last year it's 48,000. And the reason for that and the numbers going up is because Labour scrapped the deterrent that we had in place. We hadn't operationalised it, I accept, but the scheme to remove people if they arrive illegally is key to breaking this business model of the gangs. And I fear that this is just an announcement that was trying to distract from that.
Storm Flores is still battering parts of the UK with unseasonably strong winds hitting Scotland the hardest so far today. An amber weather warning is still in force across much of the country, while yellow alerts are covering Northern Ireland, Wales and Northern England. Police Scotland have said multiple camper vans have been seen blown over, and they're urging drivers, especially in exposed areas, to stay off the roads. Several rail services have also been cancelled, including all East Coast trains north of Newcastle. Flights to Scotland Islands, meanwhile, are also grounded and major bridges remain closed to high-sided vehicles as winds continue to surge. Reform UK leader Nigel Farage has named former prison governor Vanessa Frake as his new justice advisor as he's ramping up his party's campaign on crime. She says Britain's prison system is on its knees and accused successive governments of failing miserably to tackle reoffending. She's backing tougher sentences for lifers and wants urgent reforms focused on rehabilitation. Well, it was the second high-profile appointment for reform today after Conservative Police and Crime Commissioner Rupert Matthews defected to the party. Mr Farage says that both moves mark a major moment in his justice agenda. More than 100 people gathered outside a migrant hotel in Canary Wharf over the weekend, staging what they called is a pink protest against housing asylum seekers in hotels there. Tensions escalated when a group of masked men arrived, setting off smoke bombs and trying to breach hotel fencing. One man was arrested there for assault. It's the latest in a string of demonstrations targeting hotels across the country that are used for migrant accommodation. Separately, 2 more men were charged over last month's violent protest outside the Bell Hotel in Epping. It brings the total number of arrests to 11 so far. Meanwhile, pro-Palestinian groups are turning their focus on the Labour Party, accusing them of being too soft on Israel. The Palestinian Youth Movement has released an 8-page guide urging activists to besiege Labour MPs, councillors and offices across the country. They claim that Labour is complicit in Israel's actions in Gaza. They also say that Sir Keir Starmer's recent pledge to recognise a Palestinian state is a meagre and politically convenient move. The Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, is heading to fresh talks with the BMA this week. He's hoping to prevent another wave of strikes by resident doctors. It follows a 5-day walkout last week with NHS England claiming fewer than a third of doctors took part. But the BMA disputes those figures, arguing shift patterns made the data unreliable. The dispute has already caused major disruption and both sides are under pressure to find a resolution, with those talks expected to continue over the coming days. Millions of drivers could be owed compensation after being missold car finance deals, with payouts potentially totalling up to £18 billion. The Financial Conduct Authority has called on leaders to disclose commission payments after reportedly failing to do so between 2007 and 2021. It's now preparing to consult on a formal redress scheme by October. If approved, payouts would begin in 2026, with the average payment expected to be around £950. And TV and radio legend James Whale has died at 74. Known, of course, for his iconic phone-ins, he became a household name in the 80s. And a cancer survivor too, Whale founded Kidney Cancer UK and earned an MBE for his charity work. Friends and colleagues today are remembering him as both a rule breaker and a good friend. Those are the latest headlines for now. I'll be back with you very shortly. Next, though, let's take a look at the markets.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
And here's how the markets are closing up for the day today. The pound will buy you $1.3294 and €1.1486 euros. The price of gold, £2,539.66 per ounce. And the FTSE 100 is at 9,116 points.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
Thank you, Sam. To our top story this afternoon, and the government is committing an extra £100 million to help smash those smuggling gangs they haven't managed to smash thus far. Now, the additional funding will go towards the so-called one-in, one-out return scheme with France. But in the meantime, protests show no sign of slowing down as demonstrators continue to gather outside hotels housing asylum seekers. And this included outside the Britannia International Hotel in Canary Wharf, as you can see on your screens now, this weekend, where women and children were dressed in pink and they protested peacefully before masked rioters stormed the demonstration and clashed with police. And indeed, more protests are planned throughout the rest of this week. Here to discuss this in the studio with me, I'm delighted to be joined by GB News' political correspondent, Catherine Forster. Catherine, welcome back to the studio. Let's start with these protests, if we can. A year ago, the Prime Minister called them far right. Many believe that was a spectacular error of judgment. The protests continue to mount as the problems driving them continue to surface. Allegations of sex offences in areas they aren't going anywhere anytime soon, and it looks set they're going to increase.
It does look that way because we're seeing this again and again, as you've just alluded to. We've had these crimes allegedly committed by asylum seekers very recently, young girls of 12 or 14 years old, and sometimes in broad daylight. So I think it is significant now. You are increasingly seeing women dressed in pink, mothers. I was at a press conference with Nigel Farage of Reform a little bit earlier. They were talking a lot about this, and he said to me that there's grave concerns, particularly amongst mothers, about basically letting their young daughters, teenage daughters out, and whether they are safe. And for all that the government are announcing initiatives left, right and centre on what they're doing to smash the gangs, it does feel to many like we swapped one three-word slogan, which was stop the boats under Rishi Sunak, for smash the gangs under Starmer. You know, they're constantly announcing different initiatives, but the numbers are up, crossing the channel, 25,000 this year. That's up 50% on this time last year. They're going completely in the wrong direction. And Nigel Farage saying, we are done, we have had enough. Now, of course, it's easy when you're not in power to make pledges, but Reform are saying that what normal countries do is detain people and deport them. And he's basically said today that those that come across the channel should not be free to walk the streets. They should be detained and deported. He told me that their plans for how they will do this, they will lay out later in the summer. But it does sound like a very radical approach, and something that for all the government's efforts, they are just not getting a grip of this at all at the moment.
Yeah, Catherine Forster, excellent. Please stick with me. I'd like to join my next guest now. I'm delighted to say we speak with a mum of three and a local resident of Bognor Regis, Carly Cameron. Carly, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have your company. I wanted to ask you, what's motivated you to take to the streets in your area to protest about asylum hotels?
Just watching the daily increase of all the boats come in, all the illegal immigrants, hearing of the stabbings, the rapings of all these poor little children. I've also had dealings with social services and the police myself, and I'm finding that all services are really, really under pressure. It feels like Keir Starmer is doing nothing but encouraging these people to come here, offering them more and more benefits while we receive less and less, and we struggle to live and afford daily life. That everyone needs to be getting out there and making their point across. There is protests and rallies going on weekly at the moment, and people do need to be taken to the streets and getting your flags out and making an effort now.
Now, Carly Cameron, of course, I have to add that these offences at the moment are alleged, and of course not everybody coming to the country wishes harm upon Brits. We need to have that bit of balance. And I know you agree with that, but I wanted to ask you specifically, we saw at Canary Wharf yesterday, we've seen at other protests, counter-protesters coming in and calling people like yourself far-right, racist, fascist, Nazi scum off our streets, we were hearing in London at the weekend. How does it feel as a mother of three who's concerned about safety of children to be branded such horrible things?
It is really insulting and degrading, and you hear it so often now. People actually are not educating themselves on the situation, and they're just choosing a side and jumping on the bandwagon. And people really do need to get out there, educate themselves more, and get a lot more knowledge on what's going on. It's escalating daily.
And do you feel that the police are responding in a way with equity? We hear all the time about two-tier policing. Do you feel that that's the case, or in your experience have the police been fair?
No, I do feel there's a lot of two-tier policing from what I've witnessed. I've been quite involved over the last year or so. They're very fair on protests and rallies, and they try to be, but they are also lacking a lot of power themselves to be able to do anything. I feel that the police are also being pressured by Keir Starmer introducing all these new rules as he does on a daily basis.
OK, I'd like to show you a clip now, if I could, Carly. This was sent to a friend of mine. He's a military veteran, 30 years service. This was at the Barbican at the weekend. Some far-left agitators were brought in and shouted Nazi scum off our streets to a veteran. Let's watch that now. Now, Carly, I wanted to ask you for your reaction to that, because we hear all the time, don't we, that the problem here is the far right. Do you think we have a problem with the far left? They're brought in to specifically perhaps agitate people like yourselves?
Oh yeah, I 100% agree with that. They are paid to come in and agitate everyone. And they just want attention. They just want attention taken off what we're trying to actually do, put it on them and their sick views and ways, and it's completely wrong.
Carly, do you think we're at the time now where we should be asking people to remove all their face coverings at protests? I mean, the law exists to enforce that, but never seems to be enforced.
Yeah, there should be no face coverings. Every protest I attend, we always encourage no face masks, no head wearing masks, because you don't need to be hiding yourself. If you're doing something right, you shouldn't need to hide.
Can I ask you about the political reaction to all of this? We've seen successive governments in many ways frozen in the headlights of the backlash. They just don't seem to understand how communities such as yourself in Bognor or all over the nation is reacting to this. Carly Cameron, do you think that's because the political class don't live in areas where hotels are? They don't live in areas where HMOs are dumped upon them. They're on a different planet.
I don't even think it's that they don't live among us. I think they choose to ignore us. Am I still there? Sorry.
Yes, you are.
They choose to ignore us. Sorry, they choose to ignore us, and that's completely put me off. Sorry. Could we just go over the question again?
Yeah, of course. I wanted to ask you if you feel that there's a sense of political detachment from the political class.
Yes,
they don't have hotels or HMOs in their area.
Yeah, it's not that they don't live among us. They choose to ignore it, and they have an agenda that they're working to, and that's what they're going to continue to do.
OK, thank you very much. We'll leave it there. Thank you very much for joining us, Carly Cameron, mum of three and a local resident, a protester there in Bognor Regis. Catherine Forster, I want to come back to you in the studio. There we have it. You know, an ordinary mum who's just concerned about safety in her community, being called every name under the sun. I wonder, I'll put it to you again, I wonder if the political class in this country has completely misread the public on this.
It does feel like that, doesn't it? And I remember a couple of months ago asking the Prime Minister, are you failing to keep us safe in the English Channel? Because we don't know who all these people are coming across on the boats. Now, of course, most of them just wanting to make a better life for themselves, but there will be some people who are bad actors and have ill intent towards us. And, you know, Nigel Farage, again, at this press conference, talking about that and the fact that if you make it here, you're effectively rewarded because you probably get to stay. You'll be put up in a hotel, you know, you'll be given board. And I thought it was interesting hearing that mum talking about people struggling. And, you know, she was saying, we are struggling to make ends meet, and you see these people just being sort of handed everything. And I was struck by something that Angela Eagle, the Borders Minister, said this morning on TV. She said, anger doesn't get you anywhere. Well, of course it doesn't, and there is no excuse for violence. But many people do feel angry because they've put politicians in charge who have said they will sort this problem out, and it isn't being sorted out. Is it any wonder that people are so frustrated?
You know, I was in Sunderland on Friday, Catherine, and what really blew me away about the people there is that time and time again they told me that they'd voted Labour forever. Their grandfathers, their great-grandfathers, you know, since the dawn of time, Labour areas, and they were feeling very, very disconnected from all of the political class because they live in those areas where houses of multiple occupancy are foisted upon them without ever any consultation, without ever having a say. They find that there are 13-month waiting lists for social housing in those communities. The city is a city of sanctuary, which sounds great on paper. When you have 9,500 people waiting for a house locally, they feel disconnected, they feel rejected. And when they speak up, and they're then called far right, and they're told by people like Andrew Eager, oh, don't be angry about it. Well, how are they meant to react?
Yes, and when I went up for the by-election in Runcorn, that of course Reform won by Sarah Pochin by a whisker, the hotel I was staying in had lots of families staying in there. You heard them running up and down the corridors. There were signs on the mirrors saying, do not cook in this room. You know, British families who haven't got housing being put up in hotel rooms, not great for children. The taxi driver was telling me he had a rental property and he was saying, look, you know, I could rent it out on a long-term deal to asylum seekers. I'd get paid a lot of money for it, but he just didn't want to do that. So I think it is very real, this frustration, very understandable. And one of the things I heard in Runcorn were, again, lots of lifelong Labour voters up till that point. And some of them were saying, you know, it feels like the Labour Party care about people that are overseas, but are not fussed about what's happening to British people, you know, under their own noses.
Do you think part of the problem here, and I think it was the same with the Conservative Party, the Conservative Party was two parties, let's face it, on Brexit and perhaps on immigration and on net zero. And that is, on the one hand, they talk tough on controlling borders. On the other hand, they have, might call them, you know, the more liberal-leaning Conservatives who don't agree with that. And the modern Labour Party also, we have the Red Wall, who know that they're gravely in peril of losing their seats unless they do something about this. And then you have a lot of other people on the Labour Party, leaning to the left, who actually seem quite happy with the way things are going. And that's a huge problem because they're not united in tackling the issue.
It is a huge problem, and also because the average majority now, I think, is half what it was in the previous general election. Labour have got dozens and dozens of seats where Reform are nipping at their heels with tiny, tiny majorities. And as you say, the Red Wall MPs are very well aware of what voters feel that they need and want to see. People like Mike Taptoo down in Dover at the sharp end of this. But there's others that have a quite different mindset, and yeah, it's very difficult for Labour because they need to deliver and quickly, because otherwise that majority is going to go up in smoke, isn't it?
Okay, Catherine Forster, thank you very, very much. Now we have a Home Office spokesperson who told GB News this. The government is reducing expensive hotel use as part of a complete overhaul of the asylum system. From over 400 asylum hotels open in the summer of 2023, costing almost £9 million a day, there are now less than 210, and we want them all closed by the end of this Parliament. And we continue to work closely with police and community partners across the country and discuss any concerns they have. The security of the local communities within which hotels are located will always be our first priority. Well, still to come, 22,500 properties are now without power in Scotland. A storm Flores batters Blighty. That's next with me, Martin Daubney, on GB News, Britain's News Channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world, but look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
You've read the headlines, you've heard what those in power have to say. How about now we actually get to the truth?
They would pay attention.
We go beyond the political theatre and tell you what's really going on behind the scenes. For a massive council tax hike, one of the biggest in the UK. Others follow their lines, but we go off script.
You sound like a broken record. You say that week after week.
Cutting through the narratives and giving you unique perspectives. That's Ben Leo tonight, Saturdays and Sundays from 9 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Your time is 5:26 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, I've got some incredible breaking news for you here now, disturbing news. Dame Stella Remington, the former first female Director General of MI5, died, surrounded by her beloved family and dogs, and determinedly held on to the life that she loved until her last breath. Her family has just announced, and that is Dame Stella Remington, the former first female Director General of MI5, died surrounded by a beloved family and dogs, and determinedly held on to the life she loved until her last breath, her family has announced. Now, moving on and returning to the Asylum Hotel protest story that simply will not go away. Earlier in the show, I spoke to the political commentator Dominic Moffett, who defended Labour's record in smashing the gangs.
It's a very, very difficult thing to do, and the Conservatives obviously spent, I think it was £700 million on a Rwanda scheme that got 4 people to voluntarily leave the United Kingdom. That clearly is not a record of success. The current Labour government is under a lot of pressure at the moment to deal with migration, with asylum claims. They're very proud of the fact that it's like nearly 4,500 foreign criminals that have been deported, that 35,000 asylum claimants have been returned to countries that they're from. But clearly, we've seen the pictures from Canary Wharf. Lots of people in this country are not satisfied with what's happened so far. Talk about more money for an asylum border command, the Borders Bill with terrorism-style powers to combat illegal migration. These are things that, as you say, sound very good in opposition. They can be very popular, but so far they're not cutting through with the public. The public are not at the moment reassured.
Now, it's also worth pointing out that I gave Dominic Moffett there the opportunity to condemn the far-left extremists screaming Nazi scum off our streets at those protesters outside the Barbican Hotel, including military veterans. He was rather reluctant to do that. I think the left need to own the fact that there are some problems amongst the political left agitating people at these protests. They need to own that as well, and not simply try and pin this all on the so-called far right. Now, moving on, a danger to life warning have been issued, with trains cancelled and commuters urged to stay at home as Storm Flores batters Britons, and with winds have now been reported of up to 122 miles an hour. And GB News reporter Tony Maguire joins us now from Dumbarton. So Tony, welcome to the show.
Martin.
The wind's still battering in, mate.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, certainly I'm here on the Clyde just now, and while this isn't the ocean, the waves
waves here that are rumbling all the way into the centre of Glasgow kind of speak a story of this storm refusing to burn itself out. Now, we are nowhere near the 122 miles an hour winds mark that was clocked up in the Cairngorms. As you might imagine, the northeast of Scotland taken quite a bit of a battering from this storm. It hit landfall up in Stornoway, out in the Outer Hebrides, and there it got the full brunt of Storm Flores about 10 o'clock this morning. But you know, the rest of the country, as we heard from Steve earlier, all the way across the UK, taking the storm and those high winds, especially on the west coast. And typically what we see is those winds really settling down as they make their way across land. But all the way up in the northeast of Scotland, we've now seen more than 22,000 homes left without power. Now, their providers, Scotland and Southern Electricity Network, they are working hard to get as many of those homes back on the grid as quickly as they can tonight if possible, but because of the persistence of the winds pile driving into the country, then they can't really guarantee that. And of course, right across the country, you know, we're seeing the disruption take root. Earlier, before today, before the storm hit, ScotRail had said that it was going to be taking trains from about midday north of the Central Belt, so north of kind of where I am just now, on the west coast. They were going to be stopping those services, but actually we've seen train lines lose power much further south than that, and we've still got about 6 hours, I would say, of these high winds to go of this amber warning.
Thank you, Tony Maguire. Incredible pictures from the Isle of Skye just arriving here of motorhomes being blown over onto their side, and they've been saved from going over a cliff edge by the side reservation of the road. Incredible stuff. Tony Maguire, stay safe, especially on your way home there. Thank you for joining us. And we also sent our travel reporter Steve Bennett to Lytham St Anne's, and here's what he had to tell us.
50-mile-an-hour winds are currently battering the northwest. As you can see, the beach here, the sand is being blown right across it. And if you joined us early this morning, you'd have seen the rain also hammering down. There's an amber warning, threat to life in place for this area until midnight tonight. And earlier on, I spoke to some of the locals who have been braving the conditions with a break in the rain. And here's what they told me about what they have been experiencing.
I mean, we do get weather like this on the front, but it's quite wild today.
The usual thing, when we do get winds up here, they're very strong. So if it's meant to be 20 or 30, it's more like 40 now. But where you are on this top here is the windiest place in the whole of the Fylde, basically, because you've got that, and that's virtually where the wind's coming from, you know what I mean? But it's so strong. I'm doing well here to stand up. So at the end of the day, the only good thing about it, it's not blowing my hair about.
Yeah, it's quite usual around here, I would say. We only live just around the corner. It's always windy. Obviously, it's a bit more windy than usual, but it's it's nice. It's a beautiful part of the world. Everything's tied down in the garden.
So the advice is still only travel if you need to, only come out if you need to, stay at home, stay safe, because as you can see, the conditions here remain blowy. 50-mile-an-hour winds are really battering this area, and up in Scotland, 90-mile-an-hour winds are predicted until midnight tonight. So only travel if you have to, stay at home, stay safe, stay in your homes while this storm passes over Britain.
Beautiful stuff. And how is that the most British thing you've heard all day? It's always windy around here. It's just a bit windier today. Now, plenty more to come throughout the rest of the show. But first, here's your traffic and your travel update. And especially today, stay safe. Please don't forget to stay with us on digital and on radio.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. The Queensferry crossing is closed to double-decker buses for safety reasons, causing commuter disruptions. On the A47 near Merthyr Tydfil, roadworks have closed the road with diversions. In Cheshire, debris on the M53 southbound at Junction 9 has closed all lanes, challenging drivers. Meanwhile, on the M6 northbound between junctions 14 and 15 in Staffordshire, motorists face 20-minute delays. The A34 northbound between the A44 and the M40 in Oxfordshire has a collision causing 30-minute delays. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Very good evening to you. Martin up next. First, though, the headlines. The UK government is ramping up its battle against people smuggling gangs, announcing an additional £100 million in funding. They say it will strengthen the UK-France return deal and bring in 300 new National Crime Agency officers. Protests outside a migrant hotel in Canary Wharf in London saw over 100 demonstrators gather this weekend. One person has been arrested as tensions there continued over the controversial asylum policies. More defections for Reform UK, with Nigel Farage announcing the appointment of Rupert Matthews as their first Police and Crime Commissioner and Vanessa Frake as their new Justice Advisor. More than 22,000 properties are without power in the Highlands and northeast of Scotland as Storm Flores has hit the country with high winds. Millions of drivers could be in line for compensation after being missold car finance. The regulator warns payouts could reach £18 billion. And TV and radio legend James Whale has died at the age of 74. Known, of course, for his iconic phone-ins, he leaves behind a legacy of charity work and a reputation as a rule breaker and a good friend. Those are the headlines for now. I'll be back with your news at 6.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Storm Flores continues to batter northern parts of the UK, with many parts of Scotland already having seen their highest August wind gust on record. Storm Flores continues to bring widespread 50 to 60 mile-per-hour wind gusts across northern parts of the UK, with the risk of 80 to 90 in a narrow corridor across the far north of Scotland as it moves away during the rest of Monday, bringing widespread disruption. These unseasonably strong winds causing havoc for many parts of northern UK. It does eventually calm down somewhat overnight, but it stays gusty, particularly in the far north of Scotland, and we'll see frequent showers following the main areas of rain. As we wake up on Tuesday, plenty of showers around for the north and the northwest of the UK. Still a very strong wind blowing through Shetland in particular, 50, 60, perhaps 70 mile-per-hour wind gusts, spells of rain here. Showers continuing for Orkney, but for the rest of Scotland, not quite as windy as Monday. Nevertheless, it is going to be a blustery day with further heavy showers coming into western parts in particular. Likewise for Northern Ireland, a few showers for North Wales and northwest England, but for much of England and Wales, it's mostly bright with some sunny spells, and it's lighter winds there for the far south and southeast. As the sun comes through, plenty of warmth still in that sunshine, so temperatures reaching 23 or 24 Celsius. Where we've got the blustery winds further north, it's not going to feel quite as warm. High teens, low 20s in places. But it is going to be a blustery day wherever you are, and it's only into the evening that those winds calm down somewhat as higher pressure starts to build back in from the southwest. We'll still see some rain heading into the northwest of Scotland, and it stays very mixed across northern parts of the UK during the rest of the week. Another windy spell, not as windy, but still the potential for some gusty winds by the end of the week.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You've read the headlines, you've heard what those in power have to say. How about now we actually get to the truth?
They would pay attention.
We go beyond the political theatre and tell you what's really going on behind the scenes. For a massive council tax hike, one of the biggest in the UK. Others follow their lines, but we go off script.
You sound like a broken record, just like week after week.
Cutting through the narratives and giving you unique perspectives. That's Ben Leo tonight, Saturdays and Sundays from 9 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's now 5:39. You're with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, is this a national disgrace? Because asbestos has killed 9 times more military veterans than the Taliban. That's according to shocking new government records. And exposure to the deadly material and poor military accommodation, ships, submarines and even tanks is causing an average of 89 cases a year of mesothelioma, a fatal cancer caused by asbestos. Well, I'm joined now by the Chief Executive of the charity Mesothelioma UK. Apologies if I mispronounced that, Liz Darlison. Liz, welcome to the show. Incredible figures. You expect, of course, to have casualties in the arena of war, but to learn that 9 times more veterans have died from asbestos is simply incredible.
Yeah, I suppose incredible. To me, it's just sad and shocking and so unnecessary. And sadly, you know, it's not just our armed forces that are at risk. Asbestos, our society, the fabric of our buildings is riddled with asbestos in this country, and the armed forces are no exception. And so that's why we have the highest incidence of asbestos-related disease in the world in the UK. And this is preventable disease and a preventable cancer. So, yeah, absolutely, it's a national disgrace, a public health disaster that just doesn't seem to get the interest and the traction that it deserves.
And the numbers, it's 401 servicemen and women killed in action by the Taliban, but it's 3,560 asbestos-related deaths among veterans in the 20-year period 2001 to 2021. And what's being done about this? I mean, we've seen the post office scandal, we've seen the tainted blood scandal. Is there a compensation scheme set aside, and is it adequate enough?
Oh my gosh, there was a lot of questions in there. So yes, I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, this is not a blame game. You know, it's a situation we find ourselves in for all sorts of reasons. And yes, we should be very proud of what we have done nationally. But the problem is, I think that we've thought that the incidence of mesothelioma and asbestos-related diseases was going to reach a peak some years ago. And the thought was that peak was directly correlated to the imports of asbestos. We now realise that the ongoing incidence in people who have had occupations not really thought to be associated with asbestos, like our armed forces, our healthcare workers and our teachers, that incidence is directly attributable to the ongoing presence of asbestos in the fabric of our buildings, our workplaces and where we live. And although we have done a lot in the past to ban asbestos and so on, we need to do more now, not only to address the ongoing presence of asbestos, but also to look after those people, those thousands of people that are dying as a consequence of sometimes what may be a very, very casual, subtle exposure. There's no safe level of exposure to asbestos. 80% of our schools contain it, 90% of our hospitals, and because we as a team of nurses identified so many of our patients were armed forces veterans, we now know about the numbers of people across the armed forces. Nobody spared the risk.
And it says here, the data, the government data, armed former service personnel could be up to 10 times more likely to develop an asbestos-related disease versus the general public. And that's a silent killer, a slow killer, a long-term killer perhaps people were unaware of, but now they are aware of it. The next question is quite simple. What on earth are they going to do about it?
The issue is the latency. So from exposure to developing the disease can be 20, 30, 40, 50 years even, long after people have finished working in the environment. And I think that's why people diagnosed with asbestos-related disease, their voice is lost. And what do we need? We need to have a national inquiry. You mentioned the post office situation. Well, you know, I liken this situation to that. We just need to get the people in power to pull together a team of experts from every aspect of asbestos and the diseases it causes, and have a long-term commitment as a nation, irrespective of who's sitting in government, because this spans many generations. And so we need to have a task force that addresses the problem and doesn't stop until the death rate stops.
Well, Liz Dollison, thank you very much there, the Chief Executive of the charity Mesothelioma UK. And if any veterans out there affected by this are watching, please get in touch. I would love to tell your story on the channel. We always do our very best to support our veterans on this show. Now, in response, the Ministry of Defence told GB News this: we take the health and safety of our service personnel and defence employees extremely seriously. Now, if you're in search of some holiday sun this year, here's the forecast for some of the top European destinations.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
It's a bit of a mixed picture across much of Europe over the next couple of days, with thunderstorms across parts of the Balkans, but across parts of Spain and Portugal, we're going to see that heat building over the next couple of days. Maximum temperatures could be reaching up to around 40 degrees and minimum temperatures not dropping much below 20 degrees overnight too. Those thunderstorms will continue across parts of Greece and the Balkans over the next couple of days, but it should be turning a little bit drier towards the end of the week. But that heat does continue to rise by the end of the week.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and this is GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Oh, yes, I've got a bit of an update on this. So, you know, Steve Jobs' daughter is getting married this weekend. We talked about it earlier on in the week.
Yes,
Eve Jobs.
They're hiring the entire Cotswolds.
Yeah, we've got more details now.
Oh.
They're taking over the village of Great Chew. And apparently the budget is said to be $5 million. Could be a lot more, though.
$5 million?
Yeah,
because the papers were saying 50 million the other day.
$5 million could be higher.
For them.
But the high-end guest list includes Kamala Harris, Bono, the Kardashians and Princess Beatrice. Rumours as well that David Cameron's been invited.
Oh. But they can't know all these people.
They've invited 500 people. So it's a big wedding.
It's just like...
Apparently the village is in lockdown.
No, it will be.
Yeah, and they're going to Estelle Manor afterwards, which is a big, like, Jacobean manor house in the Cotswolds. Oh. And they've got sniffer dogs out already.
Wow.
It's incredible.
Of all those people, I bet they only know Bono.
But didn't you think...
Everybody knows Bono, don't they? Well, no, but at least he was involved with Apple. He must have known Steve Jobs.
Was he involved with Apple?
Yeah, because they had all the... Do you remember they had the U2 exclusive iPods and
oh,
things
of course. Yeah.
So he must have known... So he probably knew her as a kid.
Yeah.
I wonder if they're going to give away Apple products.
Probably.
Oh, yeah. You know, the
goodie bag. You'll get a goodie bag.
At the end, yeah, like an iPad or
a... got a goodie bag at your wedding.
Or a MacBook. I know. But you had the free-flowing rosé, which you don't drink.
I don't drink.
Anyway. Did you not try the non-alcoholic version?
Of rosé?
Yeah.
I didn't know there was one.
I covered all fronts.
I didn't know there was one.
Oh, well. You missed out.
I had some non-alcoholic beers.
Well, good. I did provide.
GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Your time is 5:48 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, you would not believe the size of this pest. A whopping 22-inch rat. Look at that blighter. Thought to be the UK's biggest rodent has been found in a kitchen in Redcar. That's right, there's a rat in my kitchen. Now, local politicians are fighting like rats in a sack, pardon the pun, over whose job it is to exterminate the local vermin. The Tories have blamed the Labour-run council for the red car ratzilla, as they apparently scrapped pest extermination services. Well, joining me now, the Conservative councillors David Taylor of Redcar and Cleveland Council, and also Stephen Martin of the Eston Ward. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. Who wants to go first? I'll leave that up to you. This is an absolute whopper. I know my rats. I've been out rat catching myself in Birmingham a few years ago. They're taking over the place. There's a mountain of garbage. And there it is, look. I was called the Verminator back then. I killed a rat with a gun. I caught one in a trap. This one, however, was a mere nipper compared to this real nipper in your constituency, 22 inches long. It's about the size of a dog.
Yeah, I think I'll start on that one. I'm actually Councillor Paul McInnes from Normanby, not Steve Martin, but it's irrelevant. So a lady came into my local store, and she showed me the picture on the last Monday morning. It was literally hard to believe. I think the size of that. I didn't think it was a rat when I first seen it. But this rat has caused so much damage to her property. It's unbelievable. Like, it's ate through pipes, it's damaged a boiler, electrics, it's caused 2 floods. She's had to pay for this herself as well. So, yeah, it's astonishing.
And now let's next talk about the political blame game, because I believe you guys think that the Labour Party are actually rats themselves because they failed to get rid of the local vermin.
Yeah, it's all about it's just lack of funding. They're not concentrating on the right things. These issues of rats in our areas, it's just increasing, and it's a task that it's no easy task, but it should be dealt with. I think it's an easy fix, and it's a fix that will get people, a lot of confidence back in the public as well. It definitely needs addressing as soon as possible.
OK, let's bring your colleague in there. Has the rat got your tongue? Sorry, has the cat got your tongue? What's your take on this?
Yeah, it's just, I was astonished at the absolute size of it. And it's probably one of the most complained things we've had over the last few years since we've been elected members. There's been a lot of redevelopment in the area, 6 to 7 new housing estates over the last sort of 5 or 6 years. That's driving the rats further into the urban areas. And there's just not been a great amount of spend on it. In fact, it's quite the opposite. Since the pandemic, there's been a lot of cutback on vermin control, and it's something we're keen to get back. It's a health and safety matter for the public, really. So I don't just think it's down to the local council. I think it's down to the water board. It's down to private landlords, homeowners. I mean, you're even getting residents going out and feeding in the area, putting food out. OK, there might not just be for the rats, there might be for the birds, but that adds to it. The amount of fly tipping that's going on is massively increased. And the biggest concern is next year we're going to be starting the food waste bins. And, the smell from them is just going to drive rats even more.
And let's face it, gentlemen, as I was told by the Verminator when I was in the Midlands, this is often it's bad habits by people because they're leaving food, they're leaving bin bags all over the shop, and it's like a giant outdoor McDonald's. Look, sinking its fangs in that fella.
Yeah. Well, you see this, obviously, the size of the rat, which just proves there's an abundance of food available for these things. And for a rat to grow as big as that, it proves, that it's an endless amount of food from anywhere, really. I mean, these rats normally used to eat from the sewers, and they're coming up now into the population, into the human population. It's just there in abundance for them, isn't it?
OK, well, gentlemen, we'll have to leave it there. And apologies to anybody watching at home with your evening cup of tea and your food, if that was putting you off your grub. Thank you, gentlemen. Always a pleasure to have you on the show. Now, I've got a statement here from the Redcar and Cleveland Council, and the spokesman told us this. The council has a dedicated pest control officer who manages pest issues on council-owned land. Now, while we no longer provide a wider pest control service, we do offer advice to residents where possible. And the council contributes to working with Beyond Housing, Northumbrian Water and other partners to address complex issues and explore potential solutions. Well, this is a long tale. Now, there is also helpful guidance and preventive measures on our website to support people in dealing with pests. Now, there could actually be a way of dealing with this yourself, and that is get rid of the flaming rats. Now, up next is Jubes. I believe Dawn Neeson is on the fort, and I'm back at 7 p.m. I'll be with the new prison czar from Reform, Vanessa Drake. Join me then.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Storm Flores has already broken some August wind gust records across parts of Scotland, and we're not out of the woods yet. It's going to stay very windy indeed, especially for the far north and northeast of Scotland as Flores moves away overnight. And it's going to be a blustery night wherever you are, but the peak wind gusts of 60 to 70, perhaps 80 to 90 will be felt across the far north and northeast of Scotland, continuing to bring disruption because of the unseasonable and unusually strong nature of Flores. Blustery elsewhere across the UK, further showers following into much of Scotland, Northern Ireland, North West England, North and West Wales, 1 or 2 showers further south. But overall, a dry start to the day for southern parts of the UK, a very blustery and showery start to the day for much of Scotland, especially the far north of Scotland, Shetland seeing again 50-60 mile/hour wind gusts as we begin Tuesday. So it's still going to be very windy even as Flores heads into Norway. Across the rest of Scotland as well as Northern Ireland, not quite as windy as we've started the week, and those gusty winds continue to drive showers into northwestern parts of the UK in particular. Some heavy downpours interspersed by brighter spells, and all in all things are very gradually calming down through Tuesday, but it will take a time. It's going to be a breezy day wherever you are. The brightest skies will be in the south, with temperatures responding well, 23, 24 Celsius. Further north, feeling cool with that gusty wind continuing into the afternoon and those showers coming and going. Wednesday starts off calm, plenty of sunshine across the UK, some patchy cloud in the far north, a bit of a breeze here, and outbreaks of rain moving through. But mostly Wednesday settled. We've got high pressure in place, plenty of sunny skies. Then another low comes along for Thursday and Friday, not quite as potent as Storm Flores, but still bringing some strong winds to the far north.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good evening, this is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. Ongoing incident on the M53 southbound exit slip at junction 9 due to debris blocking lanes. Traffic clears by 7:53. In Staffordshire, the A500 southbound between the M6 junction 16 and the junction with the A34 is closed due to a vehicle fire. The A470 southbound through Merthyr Tydfil experiences roadworks, causing full closure and diversions. In Greater London, the M25 anti-clockwise manages a road collision with one lane closed. And on the trains, Storm Flores disrupts Avanti West Coast services north of Preston, affecting various routes. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Let us take on some of your financial stresses and pay your mortgage or rent for the next 12 months. We want to give you a cash lump sum equivalent to 12 of your monthly mortgage or rent payments, up to an unbelievable £20,000. We'll also boost that by a further £5,000, so you really could have some fun in the coming year. For a chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB15 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 29th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates,
5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday.